Chapter 292. Over the past few days, Lin Yuan had almost swept through all the non-auction items in the Star Web's Rare Lifeform Pavilion and had only bought 2 of the lowest-grade strange flames. The strange flames were divided into low-grade, mid-grade, and high-grade according to the Abyss Dimensional Rift that was produced. As for the strange flames produced in Class 4 Abyss Dimensional Rifts, they were already considered superior-grade strange flames. Lin Yuan had never heard of superior-grade strange flames appearing in the market. After all, there were already Class 6 demons in the Class 4 Abyss Dimensional Rifts. Only King-class and above Emperor-class experts were qualified to obtain such strange flames that could only be produced in Class 4 Abyss Dimensional Rifts. If the position of King-class experts required an A-rank Spirit Chi professional and a Fantasy Breed Fae, for Emperor-class experts, they had to be an S-rank Spirit Chi professional and possess a Myth Breed Fae. As for the Lifeform Sacrificial Fire that Lin Yuan had obtained, it might have been obtained in a Class 3-dimensional rift. However, the effect of the Lifeform Sacrificial Fire was too powerful and could directly give a plant-type Fae a second life. Such an effect allowed the Lifeform Sacrificial Fire to jump out of the category of strange flames. It was ranked 7th among the fire-type spiritual ingredients in the world. The 2 low-grade strange flames that Lin Yuan had bought on the Star Web were the Brown Bone Flames. The inferior Brown Bone Flame was produced in Class 1 Abyss Dimensional Rifts. As long as a large number of demons died together, the inferior Brown Bone Flame would be able to produce the inferior Brown Bone Flame. As long as a large number of demons died together, they would be nourished by the Abyss Dimensional Rift's fire elements. A large number of demon skeletons might produce the Brown Bone Flames. The reason why the Brown Bone Flames were the most unpopular among the low-grade flames was that the Brown Bone Flames were slightly poisonous. Therefore, many lifestyle-class Spirit Chi professionals couldn't use the Brown Bone Flames to produce them. This was also the reason why Lin Yuan could buy the low-grade strange flames in the Star Web's Rare Lifeform Pavilion without an auction. The Phoenix Perching Chinese Parasol Tree wasn't picky about the type of strange flames. Therefore, there was nothing wrong with feeding these 2 low-grade strange flames, the Brown Bone Flames, to the Phoenix Perching Chinese Parasol Tree. These 2 low-grade strange flames, the Brown Bone Flames, had cost Lin Yuan nearly 400,000 radiance dollars each. However, when Lin Yuan fed the 2 low-grade strange flames, the Brown Bone Flames, to the Phoenix Perching Chinese Parasol Tree, Lin Yuan finally knew what kind of fire-eating Fae the Phoenix Perching Chinese Parasol Tree was. Lin Yuan shook his head slightly. It seemed like he still had a long way to go in search of strange flames. Even so, Lin Yuan was very willing. After obtaining the Phoenix Perching Chinese Parasol Tree, Lin Yuan no longer needed to worry about Chinese quality improvement as a fantasy Fae. Suddenly his phone rang. When he saw the caller ID, Lin Yuan felt that his elemental shellfish might have been found. It was none other than Gao Feng who had called Lin Yuan. When Lin Yuan picked up the call, he heard Gao Feng's candid and fawning voice that sounded a little cheap. "Brother, you said last time that you have a lot of completely jade-textured wood. I wonder if you can buy some for me, hee." Gao Feng was actually a little embarrassed when he said that. Because if someone was willing to sell something like completely jade-textured wood to you, it was a kind of favor. After all, completely jade-textured wood would be fought over as soon as it appeared on the market. When Lin Yuan heard Gao Feng's words, he knew why Gao Feng had called. Gao Feng still remembered that he had mentioned the completely jade-textured wood when he had traded with him last time. At that time, Lin Yuan had traded with Gao Feng before he had gone to train. That was because the completely jade-textured wood on Lin Yuan's hand was very messy. Although the completely jade-textured wood was messy, there were a lot of types. Although all kinds of wood looked the same before they were jade-textured, their luster and texture were completely different after they were completely jade-textured. However, the messy completely jade-textured wood that Lin Yuan had left behind had all been given to Hu Quan. On the one hand, Hu Quan was anxious to ask for it. On the other hand, Lin Yuan wanted Hu Quan to carve at will and decorate the mansion's interior environment with those small things made of various completely jade-textured spiritual materials. Although the previous residence had been generally decorated, there were still many details that were lacking. Therefore, the completely jade-textured wood on Lin Yuan's hand was only from a few days ago. Lin Yuan had just taken down a large batch of 5 kinds of rare wood that had just become completely jade-textured from the 2 huge parasol wood shelves in the Spirit Lock Spatial Zone. Although there were fewer types of completely jade-textured wood in Lin Yuan's hand, this batch of completely jade-textured wood was even more precious. At the same time, there was a lot of it. Normal wood would be 5 times heavier after becoming completely jade-textured. To see the degree of a wood's jade-textured degree, only knowledgeable people could carefully distinguish it with their eyes and experience. The simplest way was to compare two types of wood of the same volume with ordinary wood and completely jade-textured wood. The more times the weight, the better the effect of completely jade-textured wood. If it could be 5 times heavier, it meant that the wood had already become completely jade-textured. However, this kind of completely jade-textured wood that was 5 times heavier was too rare. Therefore, in the market in large families, wood that was 5 times heavier was called completely jade-textured wood. However, the completely jade-textured wood that could truly weigh 5 times was regarded as the best among the completely jade-textured wood of the same species and was highly sought after. In Lin Yuan's spirit lock spatial zone, the originally ordinary precious wood had been nurtured with dense and pure spiritual power for more than a month. All of them had reached 5 times the normal weight. Each piece of rare wood that Lin Yuan had placed on the 2 huge parasol wood shelves weighed 50 caddies. About 10 sheets could be placed on each parasol wood shelf. Therefore, each batch of ordinary rare wood that Lin Yuan placed in the spirit lock spatial zone was 1,000 caddies. Every month or so, the jade-textured wood produced in the spirit lock spatial zone would reach 5,000 caddies. One had to know that things like completely jade-textured wood were extremely precious. Even if there were transactions, the price would be calculated by grams. I do, but I don't have as many types of completely jade-textured wood as before. When Gao Feng heard that there was, his face was immediately filled with joy. However, when he heard that there weren't that many types, Gao Feng asked carefully, "Brother, can you tell me about the type of completely jade-textured wood you have? Do you still have the completely jade-textured red sandalwood that makes your fish tank?" Second update, end of this chapter. Chapter 293. Take completely jade-textured wood for example. This kind of luxury that represented the level of wealth was often more symbolic than practical. Therefore, although every type of completely jade-textured wood was very popular in the market, the price difference was huge. Every species of this completely jade-textured wood had its own style. However, the more precious ordinary wood was, the more sought after it was completely jade-textured. Take Gao Feng for example. The best wood he had seen the last time he went to Lin Yuan's mansion was the completely jade-textured red sandalwood and agarwood. However, compared to agarwood, which was a more brittle and completely jade-textured wood, the completely jade-textured red sandalwood was an excellent choice for making small ornaments or furniture. Upon hearing that, Lin Yuan replied, "I don't have any completely jade-textured red sandalwood, but the wood I have isn't any worse than completely jade-textured red sandalwood." In order to maximize the integration of the spirit lock spatial zone's resources, he had chosen a bit of agarwood that he liked. He only chose the 5 most expensive types of wood on the market, the most sought after by the rich. Gao Feng's interest was immediately piqued. Since Lin Yuan said that these 5 types of completely jade-textured rare woods would not be inferior to red sandalwood, they would definitely not be inferior. However, there were less than 15 types of precious wood that were not inferior to completely jade-textured red sandalwood. Gao Feng couldn't help but become excited. He couldn't help but wonder if there would be the one he wanted the most. When Gao Feng had seen the jade-textured furniture in Lin Yuan's mansion, he had felt as though he had entered a golden cave. Moreover, the completely jade-textured furniture looked ordinary without any carvings. This made Gao Feng understand what low-key luxury was. After Gao Feng returned to the Gao family's old house in Wind Mist City, he saw the furniture and furnishings that were designed by 5-star craftsmen and made completely of jade-textured wood. Gao Feng actually felt that it was a little rustic. "Brother, can you tell me what kind of completely jade-textured rare wood you have?" Upon hearing that, Lin Yuan answered directly on the other end of the phone. "Currently there are only 5 types of completely jade-textured wood: yellow rosewood, chicken wing wood, ebony, green elm and gold-threaded nanmo." He went straight to the point and did not keep them guessing about the completely jade-textured wood in his hands. If he wanted to trade these completely jade-textured rare woods, there was no more suitable faction than the Gao family. Only a wealthy family like the Gao family would have an extreme desire for rare jade-textured wood. Moreover, rich and powerful families like the Gao family also had the most good deals. He could use these completely jade-textured rare woods to exchange for the resources he wanted and was in short supply with the Gao family. On the other side of the phone, Gao Feng had already excitedly slapped his thigh. A large part of the reason Gao Feng had come to Lin Yuan to buy these completely jade-textured wood was because he wanted to give his father a gift during the new year. When Gao Feng had gone to Lin Yuan's mansion the last time, he hadn't been able to distinguish whether the completely jade-textured wood was top-notch or not. Although Gao Feng could tell if wood was completely jade-textured, he wasn't proficient in this field. However, after Gao Feng had gone home and measured the piece of completely jade-textured agarwood that Lin Yuan had given him, he found that it was actually 5 times heavier. This was why Gao Feng had slapped his thigh happily when he had heard Lin Yuan's words. It was because the Gao family's old master preferred green elm among all the completely jade-textured wood. Even Gao Feng's grandfather, the Gao family's old master, had not been able to find a few large pieces of completely jade-textured green elm. The price of completely jade-textured wood didn't just depend on the degree of jade texturing. It also depended on the size of the completely jade-textured wood. The larger the wood, the bigger and rarer the items that could be made. The reason why the Gao family's old master had not been able to find a few large pieces of completely jade-textured green elm was not just because it was too rare. The more important reason was that when green elm was jade-textured, the concentration of spirit chi it received was not uniform, and it was easy to break. Gao Feng remembered that the largest piece of completely jade-textured green elm that his old master had received had been carved into a picture of thousands of mountains and hidden peaks. Gao Feng had a deep impression of this picture of thousands of mountains and hidden peaks carved from completely jade-textured green elm. When Gao Feng had not eaten properly when he had been a child and used a spoon to knock on this picture of thousands of mountains and hidden peaks, he had been beaten up by his father. When his old master had seen his father beating him, he had given his father 2 slaps on his neck. However, Gao Feng remembered that when the old master had hugged him and coaxed him to the point where he had stopped crying, he had immediately checked if there were any marks on this picture of thousands of mountains and hidden peaks carved from completely jade-textured green elm. Gao Feng knew that his old master had treated him extremely well and had been pampered since he was young. Therefore, when Gao Feng heard that Lin Yuan had completely jade-textured green elm, Gao Feng wanted to buy this completely jade-textured green elm no matter what. When Lin Yuan heard Gao Feng's excited voice over the phone, the corners of his mouth curled up. The more Gao Feng liked it, the more good things he could exchange for. "Brother, where are you? I'll look for you in person." Upon hearing that, Lin Yuan raised his brows and replied, "You're quite free. You're quite free." Upon hearing Lin Yuan's words, Gao Feng's happy and excited expression turned bitter. "Of course I'm bored to death. Everyone else has gone to participate in the tournament, but no one wants me. Now I'm at home watching live streams on Star Web every day. It's so boring." Lin Yuan said, "I'm not at home now. After hanging up the phone, I'll text you the address." After chatting for a while, Lin Yuan hung up the phone. Since Gao Feng wanted to come over, he must have wanted to see the quality of the completely jade-textured wood in his hands. Therefore, Lin Yuan was not in a hurry to say what he wanted to exchange for, as it would not be too late to mention it after Gao Feng came. When he had heard Gao Feng talk about the Guild Alliance's tournament, Lin Yuan's heart had started to move. Before Lin Yuan went to participate in the Radiance 100 sequence competition, the tournament had ended. 3 months after the end of the Guild Alliance's tournament was the time for new guild clubs to apply. Therefore, Lin Yuan should also prepare for his guild club. If he missed these 3 months, he would have to wait until next year to apply for the establishment of a guild club. It was not difficult to apply for a guild club in the Radiance Federation. As long as one had money and a venue, one could apply for it. There were many guild clubs that applied for registration in the Guild Alliance. However, only a very small number of guilds were qualified to participate in the tournament. This was because most of the guild clubs did not even have the chance to pass the elimination round and obtain the qualification to participate. If the guild clubs in the Guild Alliance wanted to obtain the qualification to participate in the tournament, they could only fight for it with the strength of their team. With this thought, Lin Yuan could not help but think about the selection of the members of the main team after his guild club was established. At present, there was only one suitable teammate for Lin Yuan, and that was Wuxia. Third update, asking for votes, end of this chapter. Chapter 294. However, he still had to ask for Wuxia's opinion on whether he would join the guild club that he had created. He had always treated Wuxia as a partner and friend, not just a retainer. Therefore, Lin Yuan had to respect Wuxia's decision and would not criticize his life. However, even if Wuxia joined Lin Yuan's guild club, he would not be able to do so. So far, Lin Yuan and Wuxia added up were only 2 people. If a guild club wanted to sign up for the tournament organized by the Radiance Federation's Guild Union Alliance, they would have to sign up. The most basic condition was for the home team to be able to gather 5 members. Otherwise, he wouldn't even have the qualifications to register for the tournament knockout round. Therefore, including Wuxia, the main team of the guild club that Lin Yuan had set up was still lacking at least 3 members. Moreover, a guild club that planned to participate in the tournament would not only have one main team, but also a reserve team. These were all problems that Lin Yuan had to face, and he still needed to consider everything at length. Lin Yuan would not choose his teammates based on strength alone. This was because teammates in a team needed to have feelings for each other and become companions who could trust each other in battle. Therefore, Lin Yuan wouldn't be sloppy when it came to choosing teammates. They also wouldn't look for teammates who didn't meet the requirements just to gather 5 members. Wind Mist City was also a big city near the royal capital, so it was not far from the royal capital. Although the Wind Mist City was further away than the Ascending Dragon City, which was the closest city to the royal capital, the Wind Mist City was still far from the royal capital. However, 2 days was enough for Gao Feng to arrive here. As soon as Lin Yuan left the room, he called the Mother of Bloodbath. He wanted to ask the Mother of Bloodbath to go out for a meal. The Mother of Bloodbath had been in human form with Lin Yuan for the past few days. Lin Yuan found that although the Mother of Bloodbath looked cold, it was actually a foodie in essence. Every time he ate delicious food, his ice-cold face would reveal an excited expression. His excited expression was especially obvious when he ate the fried chicken wings. However, after Lin Yuan and the Mother of Bloodbath went to the restaurant and sat in the hall once, Lin Yuan and the Mother of Bloodbath went to the restaurant. If he took the Mother of Bloodbath to a public place to eat, he would definitely book a private room. This was because when the Mother of Bloodbath was eating chicken wings, it was like a human-shaped bone crusher. When he ate the chicken wings, he didn't spit out the bones at all. Instead, he chewed on the bones with a crunching sound. Some chicken species phase had very tough bones. Even if it might not be able to catch up to the hardness of silver rank metals, it was more than enough to catch up to some of the less hard bronze rank metals. It was one thing for the Mother of Bloodbath to eat the chicken wing without spitting out the bones. When it calmly chewed on the bones inside the chicken wing, almost everyone in the hall looked over in surprise. There was even an old woman who came over to ask if the Mother of Bloodbath's teeth were real or fake. If it was a fake tooth, the old lady wanted to make a similar one. The Mother of Bloodbath did not think much of it, but Lin Yuan saw the old woman's bewildered and hopeful eyes. It felt like the Mother of Bloodbath had personally extinguished an old man's ultimate dream. Over the past few days, Lin Yuan had ordered a red crystal cluster diamond phase storage box for the Mother of Bloodbath from Star Web's Ostrich Logistics Group. After asking for the Mother of Bloodbath's opinion, the Mother of Bloodbath chose the diamond phase storage box in the shape of a single ear stud. Based on the Ostrich Logistics efficiency of customizing diamond phase storage boxes, it would probably take at least 20 days before it could be received. After customizing the red crystal cluster diamond phase storage box for the Mother of Bloodbath, Lin Yuan also configured a phone for it. He had originally wanted to take the Mother of Bloodbath to apply for a Star Web card. However, the Mother of Bloodbath was not interested in the Star Web card, so it was left unsettled. However, the Mother of Bloodbath was very interested in the phone. Moreover, the Mother of Bloodbath's talent with the phone was also very high. In just 1 or 2 days, the Mother of Bloodbath's ability to use the phone to browse some small forums outside of Star Web was much stronger than Lin Yuan. The Mother of Bloodbath had joined many groups related to food. It also wantonly commented on whether chicken wings were better dipped in wasabi honey sauce or sweet and spicy sauce. While waiting for the Mother of Bloodbath, Lin Yuan opened the forum he had been browsing on the phone. After clicking on the forum that he had not been on for a long time, Lin Yuan found that the silly netizen who had said that he had been bitten by the ghost shadow-bristled spider had sent him a message again. Lin Yuan looked at the latest one. "What's your favorite fae?" Lin Yuan didn't even think before replying. "Ghost shadow-bristled spider?" When Lin Yuan saw the Mother of Bloodbath come out, he closed the forum. After this meal, Lin Yuan found that he could not take the Mother of Bloodbath to eat chicken for the time being. It was fine that the Mother of Bloodbath did not spit out the bones when eating chicken wings, but it did not even spit out the bones when eating chicken feet. Even in the private room, as long as the Mother of Bloodbath's bone crusher was turned on, even the Spirit Food Pavilion's waiters would not easily disturb the customers' meals under normal circumstances. In just 10 minutes, he knocked on the door 3 times to make sure that the diners inside were not tearing down the store. In the end, Lin Yuan paid the bill under the strange gazes of the waiters and diners. On the way back, the Mother of Bloodbath threw 2 things to Lin Yuan. Lin Yuan took a look and found that one should be a source-type item. The other was a small bottle with a drop of black liquid inside. "These 2 are for you. I really don't know why there are such strange source-type items in this world. This force that wants to use source-type items to cause trouble is really stingy." Upon hearing that, Lin Yuan was about to use Morbius True Data to check the strange source-type item that the Mother of Bloodbath had mentioned. At that moment, the Mother of Bloodbath spoke again. The other bottle contains the blood essence of a pinnacle suzerain/myth 2 avian fae. Its attribute is very pure dark element. After saying that, the mother of Bloodbath seemed to have seen some interesting food introduction and lowered its head to swipe its phone again. The mother of Bloodbath had really reached the legendary realm of hands never leaving the machine. Lin Yuan scratched his head. Was a cell phone really that addictive? He looked at the pinnacle suzerain/myth 2 phase essence blood in the small bottle. Even through the bottle, Lin Yuan could feel pure darkness energy rising and permeating. Among all of Lin Yuan's spiritual ingredients, this drop of pinnacle suzerain/myth 2 phase essence blood's preciousness was enough to rank second to the life-form sacrificial fire. This drop of pinnacle suzerain/myth 2 dark element phase essence blood was a spiritual ingredient that could change the fate of dark element phase. Today's fourth update, thanks to the eyes emitting green light. Tips. End of this chapter. Chapter 295. It was not easy even for Pinnacle Class 4 Creation Masters to obtain such a Pinnacle Suzerain/myth 2 phase essence blood. Essence blood and fresh blood had different meanings. Fresh blood referred to the blood flowing in the phase body. Essence blood was the blood essence condensed by the suzerain phase body's energy. The essence blood of a suzerain/myth fae was undoubtedly more precious than the elemental shellfish. If he was willing to exchange this drop of pinnacle suzerain/myth 2 dark type phase essence blood for 10 elemental shellfish, those factions that could take out 10 elemental shellfish would probably be eager to exchange for it. However, as long as Lin Yuan was not crazy, he would never easily exchange something like a pinnacle suzerain/myth 2 phase essence blood. This was because if a spiritual ingredient of this level had to be described in one word, it would be foundation. Only this kind of thing that could represent foundation could be accumulated. Lin Yuan's private faction could be considered more unfathomable by other factions in the future development. Lin Yuan carefully observed this drop of dark-type essence blood and found that the scent of this pinnacle suzerain/myth 2 dark-type fae was very similar to the faint scent left on the phoenix perching Chinese parasol tree. However, the faint scent on the phoenix perching Chinese parasol tree was constantly becoming fainter and fainter. Especially after the phoenix perching Chinese parasol tree had absorbed a large amount of pure spirit qi and grown rapidly in Lin Yuan's spirit lock spatial zone in the past few days. In other words, this phoenix perching Chinese parasol tree was either owned by this pinnacle suzerain/myth 2 fae or it had devoured the essence blood of a pinnacle myth 2 dark type fae like this drop of blood. Otherwise, it had devoured the essence blood of a pinnacle myth 2 dark type fae like this drop of blood. After checking it, Lin Yuan put the bottle of the pinnacle suzerain/myth 2 dark type phase essence blood into the amber button-shaped diamond phase storage box. Perhaps this drop of essence blood could be used in the future or be exchanged for some spiritual ingredients and phase of the same level. Then Lin Yuan checked this source type item that the mother of Bloodbath had called strange and useless. Lin Yuan looked at the mother of Bloodbath's data on the source type item and narrowed his eyes. This source type item was quite something. The mother of Bloodbath was playing with its phone when it saw Lin Yuan checking the source type item it had just thrown over. The mother of Bloodbath said in disdain, "This source type item is for insect species faes to use, but I'm afraid no normal insect species fae would be willing to use such a source type item to transform themselves." After saying that, the mother of Bloodbath took the bag of fried chicken from Lin Yuan's hand and returned to its room. He was ready to go for another round of bone crushing. In his opinion, the mother of Bloodbath was right. This source type item was indeed strange. If it was used by ordinary insect species faes, not only would it not be beneficial to them, but it would also affect their evolution. However, this source type item, which was harmful to normal insect species faes or source type life forms, happened to be suitable for him. It could be said that this source type item was simply tailor-made for Lu Jie's contracted insect queen. Lu Jie's contracted source type life form, insect queen, was a very special source type life form. After contracting the source type insect queen, Lu Jie no longer had any spare spiritual energy to contract other phase or source type life forms. The insect queen might be powerful, but as its grade increased, other spirit chi professionals would be able to contract more phase, and their combat styles would be constantly diversified. However, Lu Jie could only use one insect queen to face all the combat situations. However, after the source type insect queen reached platinum, it had 5 abilities. The 5 abilities of the source-type insect queen were equivalent to a large number of 5 kinds of phase. Moreover, Lu Jie's insect queen's platinum ability was a main control life form like the hurricane owlet moth. It was a source-type life form with a very good output and a super simple genetic model. However, no matter how strong the insect queen was, Lu Jie could only contract one insect queen in the end. The stronger Lu Jie became, the more limited he would be in terms of his future development. However, this seemingly useless and strange source-type item in front of Lin Yuan had become a treasure for Lu Jie to enhance his strength. In Lin Yuan's opinion, this really confirmed that saying. There was no useless source-type item. It only depended on whether this source-type item met the right person and was used by the right person. Under true data, this source-type item's name was Cocoon of Evolution. The role of the Cocoon of Evolution was like its name. It was a source-type item that could be used by insect species phase and promoted their evolution. However, the part of the Cocoon of Evolution that promoted the evolution of the insect species phase was not the insect species phase themselves. Instead, it was the gene fragments in the insect species phase that were independent of the main body. It was indeed a good thing that the Cocoon of Evolution could evolve the gene fragments in the insect species phase that were independent of the main body. However, the genetic model of ordinary insect species phase was one. Even if some insect species phase could break up the genetic model in their body through external force and then use the Cocoon of Evolution to evolve. However, the scattered genetic model would always be separated from the mother's body afterwards. Every evolution process of insect species phase was actually equivalent to a process of perfecting the genetic model. This was because every time a piece of the genetic model was broken up and made it become a gene fragment independent of the main body, it was equivalent to hurting the insect species phase roots. Therefore, breaking up a part of the genetic model was actually fatal to insect species phase. Moreover, the scattered genetic model would not evolve because it was separated from the main model when the insect species phase evolved. The gene fragments in those insect species phase that were independent of the main body would only remain in their previous state. The source-type Cocoon of Evolution could only evolve an independent gene fragment once. Therefore, for the evolution of insect species phase, using the Cocoon of Evolution was obviously not worth it. However, this was only for ordinary insect species phase and source-type lifeforms. Lu Jie's insect queen was not in this category. On the contrary, the Cocoon of Evolution was simply an existence that could directly improve the insect queen's abilities. This was because in the insect queen's body, each insect species phase ability absorbed a gene fragment that existed independently of the main body. The Cocoon of Evolution could carry out partial optimization of the genetic model absorbed by the insect queen's abilities without changing the complexity of the genetic model. This was equivalent to increasing the overall strength of Lu Jie's contracted source-type lifeform, the insect queen. Today's first update, end of this chapter. Chapter 296. In fact, if this source-type Cocoon of Evolution could not only be used by insect species lifeforms, it would also have a great effect on Lin Yuan's source sand. This was because the Cocoon of Evolution could strengthen the source sand's heart-penetrating iron line. It could allow the heart-penetrating iron line, which was an alien insect with a very single genetic model, to be recombined and increase the hardness and sharpness of its head. There was no doubt that it could make the heart-penetrating iron line stronger without changing the original complexity of the genetic model. Unfortunately, the source-type Cocoon of Evolution could only be used by insect species phase. Moreover, even if Lin Yuan's source sand could use the Cocoon of Evolution, he would still leave it for Lu Jie to use. After giving it to Lu Jie, it would be equivalent to a transformation and rebirth of Lu Jie's strength. Although the Cocoon of Evolution sounded like a kind of spiritual ingredient to enhance phase, it was actually not like that. It was essentially a fungus-type source-type life form. It looked like a small piece of dragon's beard crisp, but it was actually completely composed of fine mycelium. The Cocoon of Evolution was actually somewhat similar to the source-type life form, the acid corrosion queen bee. They were both parasitic on other phase or source-type life forms. However, the acid corrosion queen bee's contract conditions were obviously much more difficult than the Cocoon of Evolution. The Cocoon of Evolution's parasitism was not like the acid corrosion queen bee's. When encountering an unsuitable host, not only could it not hatch, but it would also harm the host's life. The Cocoon of Evolution's parasitism method was very simple. It only needed to attach to an insect species Fey or insect species source-type life form, and it could be parasitized directly. The Cocoon of Evolution parasitizing the target was equivalent to completing the contract on its own. After that, every time the Cocoon of Evolution's grade increased by one level, it could strengthen a free gene fragment in the insect species Fey that the Cocoon of Evolution contracted. In other words, every time the Cocoon of Evolution's grade increased by one grade, one of Lu Jie's insect queen's abilities could metamorphose once. Lin Yuan carefully stored this source-type Cocoon of Evolution in the Diamond Fey storage box and planned to let Lu Jie contract it when he returned to the royal capital's manor. Lin Yuan returned to his room in the guest house and closed his eyes to rest. After a while, he immediately logged onto Star Web with his Creation Master identity. This was because tonight was the time for the blind trade of the 10 flower brocade pearls displayed in the purchase with no loss store. He could not help but look forward to how many strange flames he could exchange for these 10 flower brocade pearls. He still believed in the purchasing power of those Creation Masters. Even if Lin Yuan did not trust anyone, he should not doubt how much Creation Masters desired phase that could increase the success rate of concocting spirit fluids. Lin Yuan had actually used this blind trade method to trade for the flower brocade pearls in his purchase with no loss store, apart from wanting to obtain more strange flames. He was still thinking of using this opportunity to gather the Creation Masters' connections. After the blind trade, the Creation Masters who had just participated in the flower brocade pearls blind trade were all shocked. He realized that not long after, his purchase with no loss Star Web Store had 10 new flower brocade pearls, and they were still using the blind trade method. Then, those Creation Masters who had made blind trades to obtain the flower brocade pearls would definitely join his purchase with no loss Store's fan club. Thus they would observe and wait. This was the same as letting Lin Yuan gather a batch of Creation Masters resources. Moreover, this batch of Creation Masters resources would be divided into 10 batches and released the 100 flower brocade pearls. The amount that could be accumulated would definitely not be small. Lin Yuan did not gather these Creation Masters resources to let them help him evolve phase, improve their quality, or heal their damaged roots. Lin Yuan's main purpose of gathering these Creation Masters resources was to be able to fleece them from the hands of these Creation Masters when he needed spiritual ingredients or phase in the future. Every high-class Creation Master was, without exception, a target that the major factions wanted to rope in. Therefore, every Creation Master was equivalent to the hub of a large or small network of relationships. Many of the connections would be centered around the Creation Master, and it would be like a spiderweb-like chain of resources being pulled out. Therefore, the resources in the hands of these high-class Creation Masters might hide something that Lin Yuan needed but could not get from Star Web or other factions. If Lin Yuan wanted to develop his own faction, weaving his own network was a necessary step. However, he would not directly communicate with these high-class Creation Masters or the affluent families. Instead, Lin Yuan wanted to build his faction into a layer of fog that the high-class Creation Masters and influential families could not see clearly. Sometimes, a sense of mystery was the most intimidating power for a faction. Lin Yuan had the Spirit Lock spatial zone and could always create some things that high-class Creation Masters and influential families could not find easily. Therefore, Lin Yuan had this capital. Lin Yuan did not know how these Creation Masters who wanted to exchange for the flower brocade pearls racked their brains to set a price for the blind trade. However, Lin Yuan knew that the number of followers of his purchase with no loss store had been increasing exponentially. All of this was due to the attention that the 10 flower brocade pearls had attracted in the past few days. Lin Yuan looked at the time. It was 9 p.m. In his purchase with no loss store, Lin Yuan checked his gains from the blind trade of the 10 flower brocade pearls. After checking the harvest, Lin Yuan could not help but be a little puzzled. Had the 10 Creation Masters who had obtained the flower brocade pearls through the blind trade discussed it? This was because Lin Yuan found that each flower brocade pearls had been exchanged for 10 mid-grade strange flames. This meant that the 10 flower brocade pearls had been exchanged for a total of 100 mid-grade strange flames through the blind trade. The high-grade strange flames produced from the Class 3 Abyss Dimensional Rift were already the strange flames that Class 4 and even Class 5 Lifestyle Class Spirit Chi professionals were used to. Other Lifestyle Class Spirit Chi professionals were not as rare and respected as Creation Masters. However, the purchasing power of high-class Lifestyle Class Spirit Chi professionals should not be underestimated. Therefore, high-grade strange flames had always been a scarce resource. These mid-grade strange flames produced from the Class 2 Abyss Dimensional Rift were almost comparable in value to the flower brocade pearls. Even a Class 2 Abyss Dimensional Rift might not necessarily produce a mid-grade strange flame. Second update, it's time to start the next plots. Red Thorn evolve in order to release 30 chapters before Christmas. I'm already saving my manuscript. In fact, a lot of content has been written, but I haven't posted it. Button is finally a salted fish with a saved manuscript. Asking for votes, Mua, end of this chapter. Chapter 297. But no matter what, Lin Yuan had to sigh at the purchasing power of these Creation Masters. These Creation Masters had actually forcefully bought the flower brocade pearls, which were the same price as the mid-grade strange flames, had nearly 10 times the price difference through blind trade. Lin Yuan was very satisfied with this blind trade. These 100 mid-grade strange flames were enough for the phoenix-perching Chinese parasol tree to absorb for a period of time. In addition to absorbing the pure spirit chi in the spirit lock spatial zone and these 100 mid-grade strange flames, the phoenix-perching Chinese parasol tree could also evolve. It could also provide energy for Chinese bloodline evolution and quality promotion. It could also help Chime, which was already a fantasy breed Fey, to evolve from Fantasy I to Fantasy II. Lin Yuan did not expect his previous guess to be right. After the blind trade for the 10 flower brocade pearls, the 10 buyers who had won the flower brocade pearls had all entered Lin Yuan's purchase with no lost stores fan club. Furthermore, the 10 buyers who had obtained the flower brocade pearls were all creation masters. Lin Yuan did not choose to send any messages in the group and still chose to lurk like before. Ever since Lin Yuan had this purchase with no lost stores fan club, he had never sent a message. In fact, even the purchase with no lost stores fan club had been established when the braised egghead had ordered Elite X/Epic web spraying spiders from Lin Yuan and helped him establish it when he had obtained the exclusive skill, Transparent Spider Silk. After these 10 creation masters entered the purchase with no lost stores fan club, it immediately exploded. Even after including these 10 new creation masters, there were only over 40 people in the purchase with no lost stores fan club. It could be said that there was almost no Star Web Stores fan group on Star Web that had a greater density of creation masters than the purchase with no lost stores fan group. Moreover, the lowest rank among these 10 creation masters was also a Class 3 creation master. There were even 2 Class 4 creation masters among them. In fact, this was a little different from Lin Yuan's original idea. Lin Yuan secretly thought that he had still underestimated the resources that those Class 4 creation masters had accumulated before. Many Class 4 creation masters, especially Pinnacle Class 4 creation masters, should have hoarded a lot of flower brocade pearls. Perhaps there were Fays of the same type that were better than the flower brocade pearls. Therefore, his desire to purchase the flower brocade pearls was no longer as strong. However, he was already very satisfied with the current situation. The purchase with no lost stores popularity on Star Web could be said to have gone from its original popularity to suddenly becoming popular. In fact, many Star Web posts and forums were discussing Lin Yuan's one-star boutique store. No matter who it was on the official Chieba or forum, as long as someone mentioned it, there would always be a discussion. However, at 10 o'clock tonight, Lin Yuan's purchase with no lost stores popularity would increase. Even the popularity of the Radiance Federation's tournament's elimination round had been suppressed by this news. Tian Ningning had gone to look for Long Tao, Shi Su, Zhao Xiaochun, and Fang Duoduo's exclusive reporters to discuss and draft a draft. They had decided to hold a 5-party press conference together. Long Tao, Shi Su, Zhao Xiaochun and Fang Duoduo. Apart from Long Tao and Shi Su, they were considered low-profile Radiance 100 sequence members. For example, most of Zhao Xiaochun and Fang Duoduo's matters were published on Star Web in the form of news articles. A press conference like this was very rare. Moreover, among these 5 parties, Black's popularity had been rising on Star Web. He was a young prodigy who had risen miraculously but had not released any news articles. Therefore, these 5 press conferences, including the press conferences jointly held by the top Radiance 100 members and the rising young prodigy, Black, had almost attracted the attention of the entire Star Web. This press conference looked a little strange. Rather than saying it was a press conference, it was more like the other 4 Radiance 100's exclusive reporters were building momentum for Black. He did not know how Tian Ningning had negotiated. Or rather, this was the intention of the 4 Radiance 100 sequence members, Long Tao, Shi Su, Fang Duoduo, and Zhao Xiaochun. In short, after this 5-party press conference ended, Black's identity might not have become a Radiance 100 sequence member yet. However, in terms of reputation and popularity, he had actually faintly caught up with the momentum of the Radiance 100 sequence members. However, it was unknown who had repeatedly mentioned in the official forum of Black's identity that he had opened the purchase with no lost store as a creation master. It had also been revealed that the owner of this extremely popular one-star store on Star Web, the purchase with no lost store, was a very young genius creation master. Originally, this kind of discussion was nothing, but for some reason, someone compared the purchase with no lost store's owner with Black. This comparison immediately led to a problem. In the end, it even escalated to the point where some purchase with no loss fans had a fierce argument with some of Black's fans. In the end, it was Lu Lang, then Madman Zuan, who came forward to calm the storm. Lin Yuan did not know about these things. When he found out, he received a call from Zhang Xiaobai. Lin Yuan listened to Zhang Xiaobai's Donald Duck-like laughter for nearly 10 minutes on the other end of the phone. Only then did he find out the whole story from Zhang Xiaobai's intermittent words. This made Lin Yuan quite speechless. What is this? He was compared with himself, and there was even a storm. This feeling was really indescribable. In the past 2 days, Lin Yuan's Star Web account as a creation master had received a lot of private messages. Many of them were asking if there were any more flower brocade pearls and wanted to buy them at a high price. Most of the people who sent these messages were high-class creation masters. However, Lin Yuan did not pay attention to these high-class creation masters. This was because the next batch of flower brocade pearls would naturally be on the shelves when it was time. At the same time, Lin Yuan also realized that sometimes, the more mysterious and aloof you appeared, the more you would be valued by others. For example, Lin Yuan's purchase with no loss store. Since Lin Yuan had not spoken in the group, these 10 new creation masters would always look at the group. In order to wait for Lin Yuan, these 10 creation masters who were at least class 3 creation masters, would always look at the group. Slowly, these 10 creation masters who were at least class 3, were actually brought to mingle with the members of the group. They had even become the group of people that had the highest number of comments. Lin Yuan found that after clearing the messages in his purchase with no loss stores fan group, he did not look at it for a few minutes, and there were 999 plus messages. Lin Yuan could not help but sigh. When these creation masters joined the group, ordinary people could not compare to them. In fact, what Lin Yuan did not know was that these 8 class 3 creation masters and the 2 class 4 creation masters joined the group with the intention of cozying up to him. Today's third update, asking for votes. End of this chapter. Chapter 298. As early as when Lin Yuan's purchase with no loss Star Web Store had released the news of exchanging any bronze/epic spirit evolution for source type items and gold medals and spiritual materials, Lin Yuan's purchase with no loss Star Web Store had this proved that this purchase with no loss Star Web Store had at least a pinnacle class 4 creation master standing behind it. Otherwise, no matter what, they would not have the confidence to release such an exchange news. The 2 class 4 creation masters that had entered Lin Yuan's purchase with no loss stores fan club were only elementary class 4 creation masters. After creation masters reached class 4, there were 4 small stages: elementary, intermediate, advanced, and pinnacle. Every small stage was like 1,000 miles apart. Therefore, it was unknown how many class 3, elementary class 4, and intermediate class 4 creation masters were paying attention. They wanted to have a chance to communicate with the purchase with no loss store's owner. In fact, these creation masters were using 10 mid-grade strange flames to exchange for the flower brocade pearls because they wanted to fight for a chance to interact with the pinnacle class 4 creation masters from the purchase with no loss store. However, Lin Yuan did not know all this, and it had nothing to do with him. Under Lin Yuan's indifferent treatment, the purchase with no loss stores fan club had become a place where class 3 creation masters, elementary class 4 creation masters, and intermediate class 4 creation masters racked their brains to enter. Invisibly, the prototype of Lin Yuan's purchase with no loss stores relationship network had slowly spread out. This relationship network might only be in its prototype form now. But even if it was in its prototype form, this prototype had unknowingly outlined an unimaginably large outline. More importantly, even if this prototype of the relationship network was huge, there were not many people forming the relationship network invisibly. If each person in the relationship network was described as a chain of resources, then Lin Yuan's purchase with no loss stores relationship network would be made up of top resource chains. Moreover, the reason why the prototype of this relationship network was spreading out slowly was mainly because those who wanted to join the relationship network could not snatch Lin Yuan's purchase with no loss stores items, so there was no way to join this fan club. Just as he was about to leave Star Web, Lin Yuan suddenly realized that Listen, who had been very active in the group before, did not seem to speak much. When Lin Yuan occasionally looked at the group over the past few days, he did not see Listen appear. He did not know what Listen was busy with. Lin Yuan did not think much about it. Soon, Gao Feng arrived at the agreed location with Lin Yuan and hurriedly came to find Lin Yuan. When Lin Yuan received Gao Feng's call, he knew that Gao Feng had arrived. He put on a coat and left the guest house. After exiting the guest house, Lin Yuan noticed that Gao Feng was looking around like a little fool. In his hand was a huge box. Lin Yuan shouted and waved at Gao Feng. When Gao Feng saw Lin Yuan, his eyes immediately lit up. He walked over and stuffed the box into Lin Yuan's hand. "Brother, these are the specialties of Wind Mist City that I brought for you. They are all the special soft pastries of Wind Mist City. There are ginger hibiscus cakes, jujube paste peach cakes, bean paste crab shell cheese and so on. They are all very suitable for this season." Lin Yuan took it and realized that the box wasn't light at all. This box of pastries weighed at least 15 caddies. In Wind Mist City, there was only one old store that could produce these soft pastries. He didn't know if Gao Feng had robbed the store or if he had gotten so many pastries. Lin Yuan remembered that the mother of Bloodbath had been talking about this old store's soft pastries in the group a few days ago. However, the soft pastries of Wind Mist City's old store were not only limited, but they could only be queued up at the store. Obviously, even if the mother of Bloodbath was a big foodie, as long as its foodie attribute was not maxed out, it would not specially queue up in Wind Mist City to eat these soft pastries. However, now that Gao Feng was here, the mother of Bloodbath's foodie heart was satisfied. Lin Yuan stored the box of pastries into his amber button-shaped diamond face storage box and said, "Since you brought me Wind Mist City's specialties, I'll treat you to a meal and welcome you. Since you've brought me the specialty of Wind Mist City, I'll return the favor and treat you to a meal to welcome you." Gao Feng laughed heartily and naturally put his hand on Lin Yuan's shoulder like a brother. Lin Yuan brought Gao Feng and walked toward the Spirit Food Pavilion branch not far away. They chatted and laughed while walking, full of youthful spirit. After Gao Feng and Lin Yuan came into contact, other than feeling that Lin Yuan had the capital to make friends with him, he had the intention to befriend him. In the subsequent transactions, Gao Feng also felt that Lin Yuan was very thoughtful and meticulous. Moreover, after coming into contact with Lin Yuan, Gao Feng felt that their temperaments were very compatible. Although they had not known each other for a long time, Gao Feng had already regarded Lin Yuan as one of the few good friends he recognized. Lin Yuan did not ask the mother of Bloodbath to eat at the Spirit Food Pavilion. The reason was very simple. The mother of Bloodbath was not in this guest house at this time. Ever since the mother of Bloodbath joined those food groups, it had met many netizens. In the past few days, the mother of Bloodbath had been busy inviting nearby netizens to taste food and participate in food gathering. Lin Yuan could not help but feel a little helpless. If those netizens who participated in the food gathering with the mother of Bloodbath knew that the person sitting in front of them and eating food with them was actually a suzerain/myth Tu Fei, they would probably faint from fright. Lin Yuan had the red crystal spider that the mother of Bloodbath had condensed. As long as Lin Yuan crushed this crystal spider, the mother of Bloodbath would sense it and immediately rush over. At the same time, this red crystal spider also contained the power of the mother of Bloodbath's all-out attack and protection. When he arrived at the Spirit Food Pavilion, Lin Yuan immediately ordered a private room and handed the menu to Gao Feng. Soon, the two of them ordered a table of good dishes. After ordering, Lin Yuan saw that Gao Feng looked like he wanted to say something but stopped on second thought. Lin Yuan immediately knew that Gao Feng wanted to see the completely jade-textured green elm in his hand that he had mentioned on the phone before. Lin Yuan was very understanding and summoned the completely jade-textured green elm. It was a green elm board that weighed 250 kilograms and was about 5 centimeters thick. It was abnormally warm in Lin Yuan's hand. When Lin Yuan summoned this completely jade-textured green elm, Gao Feng only felt that there was a piece of beautiful navy blue jade in front of him. However, this beautiful navy blue jade carried a kind of green elm's unique fragrance and the green elm's hair like wood grain. Gao Feng immediately knew that this big fellow that Lin Yuan took out was a completely jade-textured green elm. This made Gao Feng very shocked. Gao Feng only felt that he could not see Lin Yuan's identity clearly. Today's first update, asking for votes, end of this chapter. Chapter 299. This was because this completely jade-textured green elm was much larger than the jade-textured green elm that Gao Feng's family's old man used to carve the Thousand Mountains Hidden Peaks painting. Gao Feng realized that Lin Yuan could always take out such a treasure calmly. Lin Yuan knocked on the completely jade-textured green elm with his hand and looked at Gao Feng. "What do you think about the quality of this completely jade-textured green elm weighing 250 kilograms? When Gao Feng heard this, his expression froze again. He looked at the completely jade-textured green elm board in disbelief. Since Lin Yuan said it was a round number of 250 caddies, it was obvious that he would not speak without thinking. Could it be that such a large piece of completely jade-textured green elm was actually of the highest quality? Gao Feng carefully observed and took out a tool that was specially used to weigh completely jade-textured wood from the petal-shaped diamond face storage box on his wrist. Gao Feng felt that this world was simply too crazy. However, it also made Gao Feng happy. Gao Feng couldn't help but think that if he could buy this completely jade-textured green elm, he could give it to his old man during the new year. At that time, his father would definitely be very happy. However, even though Gao Feng was the only direct descendant of the Gao family, the richest family in Wind Mist City, he couldn't help but feel troubled. This was because 250 kilograms of top-grade jade-textured green elm was not something that could be exchanged for with ordinary items. As a direct descendant of Wind Mist City's Gao family, Gao Feng could allocate the Gao family's resources at will. However, Gao Feng didn't want to use the Gao family's public resources for his grandfather's New Year's gift. Although Gao Feng was a direct descendant of the Gao family, anything he used could be considered a high-priced resource. However, even if it was the Gao family's resources, Gao Feng still wanted to take money out of his own little treasury. In exchange for this completely jade-textured supreme-grade green elm. For Gao Feng, a direct descendant of a wealthy family, whether it was his birthday or New Year, his elders had given him many gifts since he was young. Therefore, Gao Feng's treasury was quite rich. From Gao Feng's point of view, if he were to use his family's public resources to exchange for this completely jade-textured green elm, it would be a waste. He had somewhat lost his filial piety. Gao Feng asked cautiously, "Brother, this piece of completely jade-textured green elm is the best of the best. What are you going to trade for it?" Upon hearing that, Lin Yuan revealed a bright smile. Lin Yuan liked to transact with people like Gao Feng, who would speak his mind without beating around the bush. He didn't beat around the bush and said his plan. "I want another scorching elemental shellfish. I want another scorching elemental light. Brother, the price of the scorching elemental shellfish isn't as cheap as the infant elemental shellfish. Even 3 pieces of completely jade-textured green elm of the same quality as this one definitely can't be exchanged for a scorching elemental shellfish." One had to know that the mutation of the elemental shellfish required the nourishment of extremely pure spiritual energy. Even a Class 4 creation master would have to expend countless spiritual ingredients and pay a huge price to obtain the pure spirit chi that could induce the elemental shellfish's mutation. Elm family's price of elm. The elm element. Previously, when Gao Feng had taken out 4 infant elemental shellfish from the Gao family to exchange for a bronze/epic fei, he had received plenty of attention from the clan. Even a wealthy family like the Gao family couldn't use something like the elemental shellfish easily. However, after seeing the bronze/epic yellow spring lily that Gao Feng had exchanged for, nobody said anything. However, if he wanted to use a scorching elemental shellfish to exchange for this completely jade-textured green elm, he would have to pay the price. Even if Gao Feng treated Lin Yuan as a friend, with the weight of friendship and value, Gao Feng wouldn't be able to sit down and make this decision. However, after hearing Gao Feng's words, he roughly knew Gao Feng's bottom line. He said directly, "I can use 3 completely jade-textured green elm boards of this quality to exchange for a young elemental shellfish." Lin Yuan's words made Gao Feng, who originally wanted to refuse, feel conflicted. That was because the price was stuck between Gao Feng's approval and disapproval. In Gao Feng's opinion, it was fine whether he wanted to exchange or not. However, Gao Feng did not have any infant elemental shellfish on hand. If Gao Feng wanted to get one, he would have to use some connections. Gao Feng gritted his teeth and asked, "Brother, you have been exchanging for infant elemental shellfish. Do you need to use single elemental shellfish to nurture phase?" Gao Feng was originally in between approval and disapproval, and a descendant of an influential clan like Gao Feng would never do such a deal. If there was no profit to be made or if the profit was too small, it would be the same as working blindly. However, since Gao Feng treated Lin Yuan as a friend, it was a different matter. Gao Feng always had a principle, and that was that as long as he recognized a friend, he would definitely help a friend. Lin Yuan didn't hide anything and nodded. "That's right, I do need the elemental shellfish to nurture phase." Gao Feng immediately said, "Brother, our Gao family doesn't have any infant elemental shellfish anymore. Brother, our Gao family doesn't have any infant elemental shellfish anymore, but I should be able to get one. If I can get an infant elemental shellfish, I will inform you and we can trade then." Gao Feng was very sincere when he said this, and Lin Yuan nodded in response. It seemed like Gao Feng wasn't just making an excuse when he said that the Gao family only had 4 infant elemental shellfish. They were really only left with 4 infant elemental shellfish. However, it wasn't impossible for Gao Feng, who was the only direct bloodline descendant of the Gao family, to use his connections to obtain an infant elemental shellfish. Obviously, Lin Yuan could not be compared to Gao Feng in this aspect. Lin Yuan's resource chain hadn't been fully constructed, but Gao Feng was considered a member of Lin Yuan's resource chain. When Lin Yuan said that he wanted to exchange for the scorching elemental shellfish, he wanted to test Gao Feng's bottom line. If Gao Feng was really willing to use the scorching elemental shellfish to exchange for more resources, Lin Yuan wouldn't be willing either. He thought that the purer the spirit chi, the higher the purity of the pearls produced by the evolved scorching elemental shellfish. For the scorching elemental shellfish, Lin Yuan was still willing to use the infant elemental shellfish to mutate. The purity of the spirit qi obtained by the spirit pool in the spirit lock spatial zone wasn't comparable to the spirit qi produced by a creation master using spiritual ingredients to mix spirit liquids. Even the class 5 creation master bamboo monarch couldn't compare. Therefore, only the pearls produced by the scorching elemental shellfish that Lin Yuan mutated would be the best. Second update: asking for tickets. End of this chapter. Chapter 300. Lin Yuan only had a total of 4 completely jade-textured green elm boards in the diamond face storage box. This was because when Lin Yuan had placed the precious wood in the spirit lock spatial zone, he had placed 4 of each type of precious wood. He had evenly distributed the space on the 2 huge parasol wood shelves in the spirit lock spatial zone. With a wave of his hand, Lin Yuan took out the remaining 3 completely jade-textured green elm boards from the diamond face storage box and said, "In addition to the 3 agreed upon, I still have 1 completely jade-textured green elm board. Apart from the 3 we agreed on, I also have a completely jade-textured green elm board. These 4 completely jade-textured green elm boards can be made into large objects like beds or dining tables." When Gao Feng saw Lin Yuan take out another 3 completely jade-textured green elm boards, his face overflowed with joy. The completely jade-textured green elm had a strong function of nourishing vitality. If it could be used to make a bed, it would simply be too suitable for his grandfather. However, Gao Feng had never dared to think of using this completely jade-textured green elm that was 5 times heavier to make a bed. At the same time, Gao Feng was a little touched as Lin Yuan's current actions showed that Lin Yuan had accepted his favor. Of course, Gao Feng valued his friends very much. If his friends needed help, he would definitely help them. However, the most frightening thing when making friends was that the other party would turn a blind eye to his efforts. However, Gao Feng did not expect that he had only helped Lin Yuan with a small favor. It was just like a weed, but Lin Yuan had given him a mulberry elm. In fact, Lin Yuan also had his own principles. Having lived 2 lifetimes, Lin Yuan understood a lot of principles. Perhaps all the emotions in this world except for family were mutual. Therefore, Lin Yuan would not turn a blind eye to others' kindness and only knew how to accept it. Gao Feng looked at the 4 completely jade-textured green elm boards that emitted a green jade-like luster and said with some gratitude, "Brother, what do you want to exchange for this 4th completely jade-textured green elm board? Just let me know what you want to exchange for this 4th completely jade-textured green elm board." In Gao Feng's opinion, it was simply a blessing to have 1 more completely jade-textured green elm board that could be made into a bed for his grandfather as a gift. "If you want to exchange for these 4, I can give them to you. Use the 4th completely jade-textured green elm board to exchange for mid-grade strange flames." The large completely jade-textured green elm board that Lin Yuan had taken out was intrinsically rarer than the flower brocade pearls. On one hand, Lin Yuan had taken out this 4th completely jade-textured green elm board to return Gao Feng's favor. On the other hand, Gao Feng had decided to exchange with him because he needed elemental shellfish. On the other hand, Gao Feng had decided to trade with him because he needed elemental shellfish. Then he fed these mid-grade strange flames to the phoenix perching Chinese parasol tree to see if Chimey could advance from Fantasy I to Fantasy II. Gao Feng only had one feeling in his heart, and that was that Lin Yuan was simply too righteous. If Gao Feng wasn't afraid that Lin Yuan wouldn't be willing, he would have dragged Lin Yuan to become sworn brothers. During the meal, Gao Feng and Lin Yuan finalized that the 4th piece of completely jade-textured green elm would be exchanged for 30 mid-grade strange flames. During the meal, Gao Feng and Lin Yuan decided to exchange the 4th completely jade-textured green elm board for 30 mid-grade strange flames. Originally, Gao Feng had planned to stay here for another 2 days. However, now that the deal had been finalized, Gao Feng wanted to use his own strength to think of a way to obtain the infant elemental shellfish. Gao Feng had planned to stay for 2 more days, but now that the deal had been finalized, Gao Feng had to use his own strength to find a way to obtain the young elemental shellfish. After returning from the restaurant, Lin Yuan went to the Mother of Bloodbath's room to find it. He gave the soft pastries that Gao Feng had brought from Wind Mist City to the Mother of Bloodbath. The Mother of Bloodbath had been thinking about bringing pastries to Wind Mist City after being recommended as a foodie. Looking at the quantity and the size of the box, it should be able to eat for a while. Looking at the quantity and the size of the box, there should be a lot of food and should be able to eat for a while. However, the Mother of Bloodbath was most curious about Wind Mist City's soft pastries because of the beautiful patterns that they had. At that moment, Lin Yuan suddenly realized that Red Thorn, which had been sleeping in his leaf-shaped diamond face storage box, had awakened. Lin Yuan immediately summoned Red Thorn. After Lin Yuan summoned Red Thorn, it immediately placed the vine that didn't have any thorns on Lin Yuan's hand, just like how it did in the past. Lin Yuan took out a red ribbon from his diamond face storage box and tied it to Red Thorn's vine, which did not have any thorns, into a bough. Red Thorn had been slowly evolving, and its intelligence was constantly improving. Previously, Red Thorn's IQ was that of a 2-year-old baby that only knew how to express simple emotions. In that case, Red Thorn's current IQ was equivalent to that of a 4-year-old child. Red Thorn already had a sense of beauty. Therefore, every time Lin Yuan summoned Red Thorn, he would tie a red ribbon on the vine. In the beginning, this red ribbon would always be cut by Red Thorn's other vines. But gradually, as long as Red Thorn didn't engage in battle, the red ribbon tied to the vine would no longer be damaged. This meant that Red Thorn's control over its vines was also increasing imperceptibly. When the acid corrosion Queen Bee and Red Thorn had been put into the leaf-shaped diamond face storage box, they had looked aggrieved. However, after Red Thorn woke up, the acid corrosion Queen Bee happily circled around Red Thorn's mouth of relinquish. It seemed like there was a saying that was true. Bootlickers were always so tireless. Because a bootlicker would get used to it. The mother of Bloodbath was surprised to see Red Thorn again. The mother of Bloodbath could tell that Red Thorn had reached Bronze X/Epic. The mother of Bloodbath noticed that Lin Yuan was looking at Red Thorn with some melancholy. "Are you worried about improving your quality?" Upon hearing that, Lin Yuan nodded. The mother of Bloodbath pondered for a moment before replying. "Since this source-type life form of yours is a plant, then perhaps there will be an opportunity in the depths of the endless forest." Lin Yuan's eyes lit up. "Are you referring to the opportunity to upgrade Red Thorn's grade?" Although Lin Yuan asked this, he already had a definite answer in his heart. If that was not the case, the mother of Bloodbath would not have asked him why he was worried and said that after getting the answer. Therefore Lin Yuan's eyes were filled with excitement. When the mother of Bloodbath saw the excitement in Lin Yuan's eyes, its expressionless cold and elegant face revealed a joyful arc. "Yes, but I'm not sure if it will work." Unknowingly, it had already been chapter 300 today's third chapter, asking for tickets. End of this chapter. Chapter 301. The mother of Bloodbath suddenly looked out the window to the north, and a trace of nostalgia flashed in its eyes. The mother of Bloodbath turned its head and said, "Rest for another 3 days. I'll go and prepare a little during these 3 days. We'll set off on time in the morning 3 days later." In these few days, if one were to say who had it the worst, it would definitely be Crow. Crow's emotions had been changing drastically and extremely in the past few days. In the beginning, Crow's emotions were mainly anger at the theft of the phoenix perching Chinese parasol tree and fear of messing up the mission arranged by Lord 7th Page War. However, the anger of the theft of the phoenix perching Chinese parasol tree had always dominated. Gradually, Crow no longer had the leisure to care about the anger formed by the theft of the phoenix perching Chinese parasol tree, which had given it a chance to advance to Myth 3. Crow's mind was now completely covered by fear. At that moment, Crow was kneeling on the floor of the room. It was pressed tightly to the ground by an indescribable and terrifying pressure, unable to move. This pressure carried with it an extremely heavy and desolate aura. A voice of pity and mockery rang out. When the voice rang out, on the table in front of the kneeling Crow, there was a pot of golden datura flowers in full bloom. Chanter Crow, as one of the 8 pages and the master of the Tower of War, "I have never seen such a stupid person. You can't even do such a small thing properly. You're really useless." When the voice of pity and mockery said the words "really useless," the murderous intent instantly rose to the peak. It made Crow, who was kneeling on the ground, feel as if its life would be crushed into pieces at any time under this aura. Apart from this imposing manner, the words "really useless" came from Lord 7th Page War's mouth, which made the Crow even more terrified. If Crow had not reached the peak of Suzerain/Myth 2, it would have been scared out of its wits. As a chanter, Crow had only been in contact with the Tower of War's lead chanter under 7th Page War. This was the first time Crow was lucky enough to be directly assigned by 7th Page War. Crow was not qualified to understand 7th Page War. However, Crow also knew 7th Page War's principles. To Lord 7th Page War, a useful life. Death to the useless. When 7th Page War spat out the words "useless person," the Crow knew that Lord 7th Page War wanted to kill it. Crow knew that if he couldn't fight for a chance of survival, then only death awaited him. Although 7th Page War was not in the Radiance Federation but in the Tower of War, which was an unknown distance away from the Radiance Federation, it would be very easy for it to kill him. With a single word, the entire Tower of War and even the tower cannon would attack him. Lord 7th Page War. I haven't been exposed. Besides, I've taken care of the business in the sea. It's done? Even the 8 pages of the pagoda cannon hadn't decided whether or not to carry out the plan in the sea, and you actually said that you had done it? Since when is it up to a mere chanter like you to decide on the pagoda cannon? The crow immediately knew that it had said the wrong thing, trembling as it tried to explain itself. Lord 7th Page War, everything in the sea has been prepared. There's been a change in your foolish plan. I order you to replace the sacred source item placed in the sea with 5 source-type items and bring it back to the Tower of War. Before the crow could respond, a cold snort exploded in the crow's ears. Since the business on land has been exposed, it's no longer possible to carry out the plan on land in the Radiance Federation. Therefore, if there's another mistake in the sea, I'll send you to 3rd Page Eternal Sin. Upon hearing the words 3rd Page Eternal Sin, the crow was so scared that it could only kowtow and beg for mercy. Crow kowtowed for an entire day and night, but by the time Crow's head touched the ground, the golden datura flower had already withered. The crow did not dare to raise its head. It kowtowed for 3 days and 3 nights and knelt on the ground for another 3 days before it dared to raise its head. However, when it raised its head and found that the golden datura flower had withered, its face immediately turned ashen. At the same time, a crazy decision flashed in its eyes. When it saw the withered datura flower just now, it knew that it had to advance to Myth 3 to prove that it was still a useful person. Only then would it have a chance to survive. The crow looked at the depths of the endless forest with its cruel, ruthless and crazy eyes through the half-open window. After returning to his homestay house, Lin Yuan hurried into the Spirit Lock spatial zone. He was going to deal with the 100 mid-grade strange flames that Ostrich Logistics had sent over and exchanged for 10 flower brocade pearls. For the whole day, Lin Yuan had been feeding those mid-grade strange flames to the phoenix perching Chinese parasol tree in the Spirit Lock spatial zone. It was not troublesome for Lin Yuan to feed those mid-grade strange flames to the phoenix perching Chinese parasol tree. The phoenix perching Chinese parasol tree had a fire storage function. In other words, it could first absorb the mid-grade strange flames through its roots and store them in those golden leaves on the branches. Each golden leaf could store a kind of strange flame. There were many types of these 100 mid-grade strange flames. Every type of mid-level strange flame had its own characteristics, and even the color of the flame was strange. The colors of these flames dazzled Lin Yuan because each type of mid-grade strange flame had a different color. Every time the phoenix perching Chinese parasol tree's golden leaves stored a mid-grade strange flame, the phoenix perching Chinese parasol tree's leaves would change color. They would turn into the color of the stored strange flame. After the phoenix perching Chinese parasol tree's roots absorbed the 100 mid-grade strange flames, the phoenix perching Chinese parasol tree's roots suddenly stopped absorbing the flames. Lin Yuan realized that the treetop was like a beautiful aurora formed by a bunch of leaves drifting with flames of various colors. Nearly 100 types of flame colors circulated among the leaves of the phoenix perching Chinese parasol tree and finally gathered in the nest where Chimey was resting. In the past few days, Chimey had been resting on the phoenix perching Chinese parasol tree. Chimey was in a state of deep sleep. He knew that Chimey was absorbing the energy in the phoenix perching Chinese parasol tree that could promote its quality improvement. The 7-colored aurora-like flames were transmitted to Chimey through the bird's nest and circulated around its body. It was as though Chimey was resting on the 7-colored aurora. He did not dare to guarantee that the energy in these 100 mid-grade strange flames could upgrade Chimey's quality from Fantasy I to Fantasy II. But in addition to the 30 mid-level strange flames he had traded with Gao Feng with the 4th completely jade-textured green elm board, Gao Feng's strength had increased tremendously. After sensing Chimey's state, he felt that it should be enough. Today's first update, go get tickets, end of chapter. Chapter 302. Not long after Gao Feng returned to Wind Mist City, he sent the infant elemental shellfish and the 30 mid-grade strange flames to Lin Yuan through Ostrich Logistics. As for Lin Yuan's 4 pieces of completely jade-textured green elm, he had asked Gao Feng to bring them back when he had returned to the Gao residence. Lin Yuan could feel that Gao Feng wanted to befriend him. Therefore, Lin Yuan also had the intention of befriending Gao Feng. When Lin Yuan had been thinking about forming his guild club's main team, he had thought of Gao Feng. However, Gao Feng's contracted gold/fantasy breed breeze hibiscus, 2 spirit spring lilies, and 1 yellow spring lily. It was enough to support a soft girl as a support and bear all the responsibilities. A purely support-type spirit chi professional like Gao Feng, along with the spirit spring lily and breeze hibiscus, was mainly used to recover the consumed spiritual power for the phase. It could be said that Gao Feng's support ability was extremely useful for both his contracted red thorn and Lu Jie's contracted insect queen. In Lin Yuan's opinion, Gao Feng was a power bank with a huge battery capacity. Although it didn't have any attack capabilities, the battery pack's endurance was much more useful than a healing-type spirit chi professional in a team to a certain extent. The club's main team that Lin Yuan had established was destined not to find another healing-type spirit chi professional. This was because Lin Yuan could take on the responsibility of a healing-type spirit chi professional. However, Lin Yuan had never seen Gao Feng's strength before. Moreover, although Lin Yuan had the idea to establish his own guild club, it had yet to be built. However, Lin Yuan did have some thoughts about Gao Feng. He fed the 30 mid-grade strange flames to the phoenix perching Chinese parasol tree again. He began to use the same method as when he strengthened the aquamarine elemental shellfish and the celestine elemental shellfish. This new infant elemental shellfish was induced to mutate into a scorching elemental shellfish using a very ordinary bronze fire attribute spirit material. The elemental pearls produced by the scorching elemental shellfish contained rich fire elements, which could directly provide enough fire attribute energy to the twin red pagoda's main flower, the life-form sacrificial fire that had yet to mature. Now the scorching elemental shellfish had finally been arranged. As such, he only needed to wait quietly for a new life-form sacrificial fire. As long as Chimey woke up from its slumber, its quality would advance from Fantasy I to Fantasy II. He did not intend to keep this new life-form sacrificial fire in case of emergency, like the mature one from before. The life-form sacrificial fire contained powerful vitality energy. If he used such a flame to roast the fruit wood, he would definitely be able to fully release the natural sweetness and vitality within the fruit wood. He felt that he could build a fireplace in the mansion and place the life-form sacrificial fire in the fireplace to roast the completely jade-textured fruit trees. This kind of fruity fragrance that was full of vitality would definitely add a different kind of charm to the winter in the manor. If Lin Yuan's thoughts were known by other experts, they would risk being hunted down by the Moon Empress. He had to make a move first and beat Lin Yuan up. Using the life-form sacrificial fire, ranked 7th among all fire-attributed spirit materials in the world, to light a fireplace? Do you have to be so extravagant? Was there a need to be so excessive? Lin Yuan was leisurely integrating resources and accumulating his foundation. However, the Sparrow-Voiced Lowly Goddess's live-streaming room on Star Web had long been in an uproar. The Sparrow-Voiced Lowly Goddess had disappeared for more than a month and had not live-streamed. This time, the Sparrow-Voiced Lowly Goddess had disappeared for more than a month and had not live-streamed. This time, the Sparrow-Voiced Lowly Goddess's fans were in trouble. Of course, the most difficult one was the Radiance 100 Sequence 87, Lord Ranger Bai Hao. During this month, Bai Hao had no appetite to eat or sleep well and had lost more than 5 kilograms. If the S tournament had not already started, Bai Hao would have to force himself to participate in the S tournament. Bai Hao, who was already thin, would probably lose less than 50 kilograms from his original weight of 125 kilograms. At night, Lin Yuan went to bed early. He was full of anticipation for tomorrow. Lin Yuan did not know what the Mother of Bloodbath was talking about, which might help Red Thorn upgrade from Epic to Legend. However, if it was really as the Mother of Bloodbath had said, Red Thorn could advance from Epic to Legend. Then, Red Thorn would be able to fuse with the Willpower Rune and become a fantasy breed. After a good night's sleep, the next morning Lin Yuan and the Mother of Bloodbath set out on a journey to the depths of the Endless Forest to search for Red Thorn's chance to become a fantasy breed after a very enthusiastic breakfast prepared by the grandpa and grandma who opened the legendary hotel. This time, Lin Yuan ordered a Diamond Divine Travel Black Swallow on Star Web. According to the Mother of Bloodbath, the place to go to the depths of the Endless Forest was a little far. It was less than a month away from the new year. Since Lin Yuan had made up his mind to go to the Radiant Moon Palace to accompany his master, the Moon Empress, for the new year, he had to make the best use of his time on the journey. The Divine Travel Black Swallow became even scarier at Diamond, but its speed was more than 10 times faster. The Mother of Bloodbath transformed into a human form and stood on the Divine Travel Black Swallow's back, giving it directions. Suddenly, the Mother of Bloodbath turned its head and looked at Lin Yuan. Do you think a bird fey like the Divine Travel Black Swallow, which doesn't have much meat and is all bones, should be made into a dried pot with salt and pepper, or smoked cold sauce? The Mother of Bloodbath had just finished speaking, and before Lin Yuan could react, he felt the divine travel black swallow under him suddenly tremble. Lin Yuan hurriedly comforted the divine travel black swallow and said to the mother of bloodbath, "Don't make such a joke in the sky. Don't make such a joke in the sky." Then Lin Yuan pondered for a moment and said softly, "I don't think either of them is good. I don't think these two are good, but it should be good to make soup." When the divine travel black swallow had trembled just now, the mother of bloodbath had released its suzerain/myth 2 aura. The diamond divine travel black swallow was intimidated, and the divine travel black swallow flew in the designated direction. The divine travel black swallow did not dare to blame the mother of bloodbath, but after hearing Lin Yuan say that it was suitable to make soup, the diamond divine travel black swallow quietly raised the feathers under Lin Yuan's butt, causing Lin Yuan to grimace in pain. After flying for a while, the mother of bloodbath turned into a red crystal spider that was 1 centimeter in size. It lay on the leaf-shaped diamond face storage box that Lin Yuan was wearing on his clothes. When it was not eating delicacies, the mother of bloodbath clearly preferred its original form. Lin Yuan closed his eyes to rest, feeling Red Thorn's state and the characteristics of the 2 willpower runes in his spiritual spatial zone. Lin Yuan finally stopped hesitating and made a decision. Second update asking for votes, end of this chapter. Chapter 303. Lin Yuan planned to use the willpower rune that contained vitality and destruction for Red Thorn to use. It was a willpower rune that could be fused into a fantasy breed. As for the willpower rune comprehended from the extreme massacre, Lin Yuan felt that after Red Thorn became more and more dependent on the Sea of Flowers to fight, this willpower rune comprehended from the extreme massacre was becoming more and more incompatible with Red Thorn. Because this was the willpower rune that he had comprehended from the extreme massacre, the feeling of the extreme massacre had a sudden explosive feeling. In Lin Yuan's opinion, the sudden explosive feeling was more suitable for power offense type phase that focused on single attacks. This willpower rune that contained vitality and destruction was also suitable for Red Thorn. It was just that between the two, Lin Yuan chose the willpower rune that contained vitality and destruction. At the location designated by the mother of bloodbath, the diamond divine travel black swallow stopped in an open space in the depths of the endless forest. After Lin Yuan jumped off the divine travel black swallow's back, it seemed to be afraid that the mother of bloodbath would use it to make soup and mix it with salt and pepper. It flew away with a swoosh. When the mother of bloodbath reached the depths of the endless forest, it transformed into its human form and said to Lin Yuan, "This place is very suitable for creation masters to conduct wild harvesting. This place is very suitable for creation masters to conduct wild harvesting. You can harvest while we hurry along. If it isn't for the fact that we can't fly at high altitudes, we can let the divine travel black swallow fly a little further." Lin Yuan was a little confused and asked, "Why is flying at high altitudes prohibited here?" Upon hearing that, the mother of bloodbath had a trace of nostalgia on its face. Because she doesn't like something flying above her head. Upon hearing that, Lin Yuan immediately understood the mother of bloodbath's meaning. As soon as Lin Yuan heard that, he immediately understood what the mother of bloodbath meant. It seemed that the mother of bloodbath should also be a suzerain/myth breed fae. Only suzerain/myth breed fays were qualified to set such rules in the depths of the endless forest and would be obeyed by other fays. The mother of bloodbath looked down at the ground and pushed aside a layer of snow on the ground. Suddenly, it bent down to pick up a plant that looked like a weed and handed it to Lin Yuan. "There are many talented fays here. This wild orchid is really well hidden. It actually knows how to grow shorter in the weeds and let the weeds cover it." Lin Yuan looked at the wild orchid in his hand that looked like weeds. After opening True Data, he discovered that this orchid fay that looked like a weed was actually the dragon's mouth orchid, which was rather precious among the orchid fays. This dragon's mouth orchid was far more precious than the white jade snow orchid that he had nurtured previously. The orchids produced by the dragon's mouth orchid were huge, like the tongue of a dragon. The dragon's mouth orchid's only function was to stimulate the bloodline of the fae that contained the dragon species fay's bloodline. It could be said that the flowers of the dragon's mouth orchid were very suitable for Blackie. When Blackie the spirit gather goldfish advanced to bronze grade, it awakened the thin dragon species bloodline of the spirit siphon goldfish. Since then, the spirit gather goldfish Blackie's dragon species bloodline had not changed at all. During this time, the spirit gather goldfish, Little Black, had been eating the butterfly shells to increase the possibility of awakening the dragon bloodline. However, there had been no significant effect. However, as long as he nurtured this dragon's mouth orchid's grade, he would be able to use it. With the dragon's mouth orchid's flowers, the dragon species bloodline in Blackie's body could be stimulated again. The dragon species bloodline was divided into ancient dragons and flood dragons. Looking at the spirit gather goldfish's current appearance, it was obvious that the direction of awakening the dragon species bloodline was toward the flood dragon species. As for how much the spirit gather goldfish's dragon species bloodline could be stimulated, Lin Yuan did not dare to be sure. However, if the spirit gather goldfish's dragon species bloodline could be strengthened again, then when it became a fantasy breed, there was a great possibility that it would undergo a racial transition. It would evolve from a fish to a dragon. However, this situation was very unlikely. The mother of Bloodbath said to Lin Yuan, "Given our current speed, we should still need 2 more days. At our current speed, it should take us 2 more days to reach our destination. During these 2 days you can harvest as much as you want." As a Fae, the mother of Bloodbath knew very well that after a Fae was nurtured and sold by Lin Yuan, it was very likely that it would follow an expert with a willpower rune. This was a great opportunity for a Fae. The mother of Bloodbath recalled the arduous journey it had gone through all these years. It could not help but be a little envious of Faes that could rely on humans to obtain willpower runes to be contracted. During these 2 days, Lin Yuan's wild harvests were much more abundant than when he had harvested with Fang Duo Xaning and the others in the Endless Forest. However, Lin Yuan had harvested relatively fewer plant Faes this time. After all, it had snowed heavily, and many plant Faes were hidden under the snow layer and were not easy to find. This time, Lin Yuan really did not harvest another Fae that could evolve into an auspicious Fae like the Dragon Phoenix Landscape Carp. Harvesting a Fae that could evolve into an auspicious Fae like the Dragon Phoenix Landscape Carp purely depended on luck. However, the other Faes that Lin Yuan had harvested had much better aptitudes than the Mist Flame Dragonfly that he had harvested previously. These wild harvested Faes were enough for Lin Yuan to use for a long time. Among them, Lin Yuan was most pleasantly surprised to harvest an avian Fae that was about 50 centimeters tall and had a wingspan of over 1 meter. This avian Fae was gray and looked very ugly. When Lin Yuan first saw it, he thought it was some miscellaneous bird that had been injured by other Faes. However, after taking a closer look, Lin Yuan found that this avian Fae was not simple. This avian Fae that looked like a gray miscellaneous bird actually had a trace of elegance and a trace of the crane species Fae strength of character. Under true data, Lin Yuan found that this gray avian Fae was actually a crane species Fae. Furthermore, it was a young crane species Fae. Among all avian Faes, the rarest known ones were crane species and peacock species Faes. Among them, crane species Faes were even rarer than peacock species Faes. Since crane species Faes represented longevity and auspiciousness, crane species Faes were also known as rank 1 birds. The reason why this gray crane species Fae in front of Lin Yuan was so ugly was because its genes could not be fully revealed under the conditions of a lack of spirit chi. It could be said that this gray crane species Fae was in a situation where its genetic model could not develop due to the lack of spirit chi. In a situation where the genetic model had yet to fully develop and show signs of development. Morbius True Data was also unable to accurately determine what kind of crane species Fae it was. Therefore, Lin Yuan stored this crane species Fae, which could not develop due to the lack of spirit chi, in his Diamond Fae storage box. He planned to bring it into the Spirit Lock Spatial Zone after this trip was over. Through the Spirit Lock Spatial Zone's massive and pure spirit chi, he would be able to absorb it. Through the Spirit Lock Spatial Zone's massive and pure spirit chi, this crane species Fae's genetic model could develop and restore its original appearance. However, Lin Yuan was a little regretful because he had not found a defense type or thunder type Fae suitable for Shi Su along the way. At that moment, the mother of Bloodbath's expression suddenly changed as its nose flapped. The mother of Bloodbath smelled a familiar, dark and smelly scent. Third update, asking for votes. Do you think it's better to be single or single? Listen to everyone's opinions. End of this chapter. Chapter 304. The mother of Bloodbath's strange and pleasant voice sounded in Lin Yuan's ears with an incomparably solemn tone. I smell a pinnacle suzerain/myth 2 Fae ahead. Lin Yuan did not understand what the mother of Bloodbath meant. Although the possibility of a pinnacle suzerain/myth 2 Fae appearing in the depths of this endless forest was extremely low, it was not impossible. But then Lin Yuan frowned. He had heard from the mother of Bloodbath that this area should be the territory of a certain suzerain/myth breed Fae. Otherwise it would not have set up the no-fly order. After a Fae reached suzerain, no matter what kind of Fae it would have a strong sense of territory. Therefore, apart from some Faes that habitually lived together as a family unit, such as mandarin ducks, Very few suzerain/myth phase would survive in a territory. Different suzerain/myth breed phase had different temperaments and living habits. Therefore, the rules in each suzerain/myth breed phase territory were also different. Since the mother of Bloodbath knew the suzerain/myth breed fae in this territory, the pinnacle suzerain/myth 2 fae that the mother of Bloodbath had just mentioned was obviously not the one it was familiar with. The mother of Bloodbath said in a cautious and cold voice, "This pinnacle suzerain/myth 2 fae's aura has a dark and rotten smell. It's the same smell as the myth breed fae I smelled in that dimensional rift." After hearing the mother of Bloodbath's words, Lin Yuan immediately knew the seriousness of the problem. The mother of Bloodbath's expression was very grim. It was now in a dilemma. Although the mother of Bloodbath was also a suzerain/myth 2 fae, it had just entered suzerain/myth 2. However, the mother of Bloodbath had just entered suzerain/myth 2. If it really fought head-on with a pinnacle suzerain/myth 2 fae, the mother of Bloodbath wouldn't be able to survive. The mother of Bloodbath did not dare to say that it was a match for it. The mother of Bloodbath did not care about its own safety, but it was still carrying Lin Yuan at this time. In the aftermath of the battle between suzerain/myth breed phase, the mother of Bloodbath had no ability to ensure Lin Yuan's safety while fighting. Lin Yuan saw the expression on the mother of Bloodbath's face and smiled brightly, revealing his small white teeth. Lin Yuan immediately took out a wooden token from the diamond face storage box and held it in his hand. "Master gave this to me. He said that as long as I use this source-type extreme token, I can immediately release a moonlight domain." The mother of Bloodbath's expression immediately relaxed. With this trump card, as long as he was in danger, he could activate the moonlight domain engraved in the extreme token. Under the protection of the moonlight domain, no one could hurt him. "I'm afraid it doesn't even exist in this world." He had helped the mother of Bloodbath survive the world cleansing, which was equivalent to giving it a new life. In the mother of Bloodbath's opinion, it was not only Lin Yuan's path protector but also its savior. Therefore, in times of crisis, the mother of Bloodbath was willing to use its life to protect them. At that moment, Lin Yuan felt the snow under his feet melt into the soil in an instant, and the land became barren in the blink of an eye. The extremely fertile land in the depths of the endless forest had all lost its nutrients as far as Lin Yuan could reach. The land had turned into a dry and nutrient-free state, and there were ravines all over it. Then he heard an extremely desperate and angry shout. "How dare you plot against me when I'm breaking through? I want you dead." Upon hearing this desperate and angry shout, Lin Yuan could feel the despair of the road ahead being blocked in that voice. There was also the anger of being cruelly injured by someone with ruthless means. An insolent and sinister laughter could be heard. It sounded a little like the sound of fingernails scratching a blackboard, sharp and hoarse. Although this voice was speaking the human language, Lin Yuan immediately sensed the unique timbre of an avian fae in it. Obviously, this voice was the suzerain/myth dark-type avian fae that the mother of Bloodbath had said had appeared in the controlled class 3-dimensional rift. If Chimy's voice was said to be the most pleasant to hear among avian faes, then Lin Yuan really could not think of anything worse than this avian fae's voice. "Kikik. If you weren't at the juncture of evolving to Myth 3, I wouldn't have been able to beat you even if I didn't sneak attack you." These words were insolent, but there was also a sense of shamelessness in them, as though they were weak and in the right. However, as soon as that shout sounded just now, the mother of Bloodbath's expression became very ugly. At that moment, the insolence in that unpleasant voice with the unique timbre of an avian fae slowly turned into viciousness. "You just used the willpower rune to communicate with heaven and earth in preparation to experience the world cleansing. The willpower rune has already been shot out and the world cleansing is about to arrive. I'll take out your tree core at this time. With your tree core and the world grace that will descend after you endure the world cleansing, it should be enough for me to break through my grade." As soon as Lin Yuan heard that, he knew things were not good. For plant faes, having their tree core dug out might not be like animals having their hearts dug out, and they would not die immediately. However, a plant fae without its tree core was equivalent to losing its whole body's energy essence. After a long period of recuperation, it might be able to condense a tree core again. However, during this period of condensing the tree core, the plant fae's grade would always be at its original grade. Moreover, it would always be in a weak state of damaged roots. Take the cinnabar sweet osmanthus for example. In order to grow a new tree core in the spirit lock spatial zone, the cinnabar sweet osmanthus had been absorbing the spirit lock spatial zone's pure and massive spirit chi. Even after such a long time, the cinnabar sweet osmanthus's tree core still had not condensed. On the contrary, the cinnabar Osmanthus haworthia, which grew on the cinnabar suite Osmanthus, had now recovered its health. It was absorbing a large amount of pure spirit chi in the spirit lock spatial zone and began to grow slowly. The mother of bloodbath gritted its teeth, and its expression was cold and full of worry. It turned into a palm-sized red spider and landed on Lin Yuan's shoulder. Lin Yuan, I'll restrain all my aura. Carefully bring me closer. Upon hearing the anxiety in the mother of bloodbath's tone, Lin Yuan immediately understood its meaning. The mother of bloodbath intended to carry out a sneak attack. However, it was also right. The mother of bloodbath was originally a fae that was good at assassination. Only in a sneak attack state could the mother of bloodbath unleash its full strength. It could even achieve double the lethality in a surprise attack. Lin Yuan quickly moved forward and held the source-type extreme token tightly in his palm. Today's first update, end of this chapter. Chapter 305. He held the source-type extreme token in his palm so that when he encountered danger, he could immediately release the moonlight domain in the extreme token as long as he exerted a little force. In the endless forest this time, Lin Yuan did not let the source sand create a large amount of sand underground. If the source sand wantonly created sand in the depths of the endless forest, it would attract the attention of the high-grade fays in the endless forest. There were also powerful fays living under the endless forest's land. If it wantonly created sand in such a natural environment in the wild, it would really be no different from courting death. The mother of bloodbath had originally planned to sacrifice itself to protect Lin Yuan when it encountered danger. However, after knowing that Lin Yuan had the extreme token from the Moon Empress, if the mother of bloodbath really fought with the suzerain/myth breed fae, it would not worry about Lin Yuan's safety. In fact, it might even be in a desperate situation. If Lin Yuan crushed the extreme token, not only could he protect himself, but he might even save the mother of bloodbath's life. At the same time, the mother of bloodbath let Lin Yuan go over because he was at best a C-rank spirit chi professional with a weak aura. Moving in the depths of the endless forest would not attract the attention of that suzerain/myth 2 dark-type avian fae. Before he got close, Lin Yuan saw a beautiful tree that was nearly 30 meters tall. This 30-meter tall tree was not conspicuous in the depths of the endless forest, where the average tree height was 50 meters. However, when Lin Yuan saw this tree, he was shocked. He felt as if he was in a dreamy scene and saw a beautiful and dreamy tree. This tree looked a bit like a banyan tree, but unlike a banyan tree, this tree had countless pink-purple flowers that looked like hydrangeas. Each of these embroidered ball-like flowers was made up of small flowers. A large cluster of pink-purple flowers was gently bunched together and bloomed between the branches. Many tree vines hung down from the branches, and these tree vines were full of hydrangeas flowers that emitted a sparkling pink-purple halo. However, at that moment, there was a large triangular hole on the tree trunk with hydrangeas. This hole looked like it had been violently pecked through by a bird's beak. The triangular hole still had remnants of dark energy slowly corroding the tree trunk. The center of the trunk, where the tree core was stored, was completely hollowed out. This plant's suzerain/myth breed fae was rapidly gathering vitality in an attempt to mend the hole in the tree trunk and the tree core that had been dug out. However, the dark energy collided with the life force that was trying to fill the hole. Under the tree, which was full of pink and purple hydrangeas, a woman in a pink and purple dress was clutching her chest. He angrily glared at the middle-aged man in the air, who was holding a jade-green crystalline tree core in his hand. Lin Yuan sensed dense darkness energy from the middle-aged man holding the crystalline tree core in midair. This smell was the same as the black essence blood that the mother of bloodbath had given him and the phoenix perching Chinese parasol tree. However, this middle-aged man with a triangular scar at the corner of his eye merely had a similar aura to the middle-aged man who had ambushed Lin Yuan in the controlled Class 3 Abyss Dimensional Rift. There were no other similarities. This middle-aged man's aura was many times stronger than that of the middle-aged man in the controlled Class 3 Abyss Dimensional Rift. This was Lin Yuan's first time facing a suzerain/myth breed enemy. Moreover, it was Lin Yuan's first time facing a suzerain/myth breed enemy, and it was a pinnacle myth 2 fae. Although the woman in the pink and purple dress had an angry face, her temperament had an indescribable sense of benevolence. Although this woman in the pink and purple dress looked very young, the corners of her eyes drooped as if she loved all the living beings around her. This woman in the pink and purple dress should be the human form of this suzerain/myth breed plant fae. Although plant fays could transform into human form at suzerain/myth 2, their roots grew underground. However, as plant fays' roots grew underground, those plant fays that relied on their roots to absorb nutrients from the ground couldn't move their roots easily. Therefore, to some extent, plant phase moving their roots was a kind of behavior that caused harm to their roots. Therefore, plant phase could only transform into human form when they were at suzerain/myth 2. They could only transform into human form with the huge spiritual energy contained in plant phase, and their human form could not be too far away from their main body. Only when a plant species Fae reached myth 3 would it be able to transform into a human form with spiritual energy. Instead, they could transform into human form like animal phase and integrate into human society. There was a pinkish-purple law rune hovering above the head of that 30-meter-tall suzerain/myth breed plant Fae that was full of flowers. This pink-purple law rune was like a petal-shaped law rune that was constantly fusing with pink and purple petals. This petal-shaped law rune was different from the blood power contained in the Mother of Bloodbath's red crystal-shaped law rune. This pink-purple petal-shaped law rune was emitting a kind of power that was different from spiritual energy but very similar. If spiritual energy was the power that acted on the brain, then the power emitted by this pink-purple petal-shaped law rune was a kind of power that acted on the mind. This kind of power was a kind of enlightenment power. This kind of enlightenment power seemed to be able to give something wisdom or enlighten something. At that moment, Lin Yuan suddenly knew that there was a chance to improve Red Thorn's quality in the depths of the endless forest that the Mother of Bloodbath had mentioned. It should be referring to the power emitted by this suzerain/myth breed law rune. At that moment, a hole suddenly appeared in the sky. This hole was like the originally calm blue sky had suddenly collapsed, and all the blue flowed toward the hole. A brownish-red color containing a destructive aura poured out of this hole. Upon seeing the change in front of him, Lin Yuan understood that this should be the world cleansing that was about to arrive. A world cleansing started from the collapse of the sky. In just a moment, the brownish-red color containing a destructive aura poured out and burned half the sky. The destructive brownish-red flame power was concentrated on the head of this plant suzerain/myth Fae. In midair, the pinnacle suzerain/myth 2 avian Fae that had transformed into a middle-aged man with a triangular scar under the corner of his eye looked particularly sinister under that sinister gaze. End of this chapter. Chapter 306. Crow looked at the woman in the pink-purple dress and said cruelly, "I hope you can survive the world cleansing before you die. I hope you can survive the world baptism before you die. If you can't, I can help you. Otherwise, I won't be able to obtain the world grace after the world baptism." Just as Crow laughed maniacally and was about to lose its vigilance, suddenly, a red crystal-like blood-red law rune floated above the Mother of Bloodbath's head. A strange and pleasant cold voice rang out. "Blood law, use blood as a blade and the blade pierces the heart." The Mother of Bloodbath's cold voice sounded. The woman in the pink-purple dress, who had been desperate and angry under the tree, had pleasant surprise and sorrow on her face. This emotion suddenly collided with Lin Yuan's eyes, and for some reason, his heart suddenly clenched. Although this emotion seemed complicated, the meaning was very simple. It was the pleasant surprise of seeing an old friend and the sorrow of her impending death. At the same time, Crow's scream sounded in midair. This scream was abnormally mournful as if it had suffered great pain. Crow's body seemed to suddenly shrink, and the position of its heart seemed abnormally swollen under the shrinking of its body. At that moment, the Mother of Bloodbath's strange and pleasant cold voice sounded again. "Blood law, heart and blood as a blade, 10,000 blades repel." Crow's wrinkled humanoid body began to tremble violently. It was as if something would break out of its body at any time. The Mother of Bloodbath's blood law rune's power and energy were fully displayed at that moment without any restraint. When Crow felt this blood law rune's energy, the expression on its face instantly became complicated. Anger and resentment filled Crow's mind. Crow only wanted to attack the Mother of Bloodbath with all its strength and kill it. At that moment, the woman in the pink-purple dress did not care about the world cleansing pouring down from the sky. Instead, she chose to recall her pink-purple petal-shaped law rune. A kind and gentle voice suddenly rang out. "Enlightenment law, mind seal, heart stop." Immediately after, the embroidered balls formed by the pink-purple flowers all fell from the tree. When they landed on the ground, they splashed into a rain of flowers. Each petal was like a chaotic blade that could cut through the surging mortal world. The sudden rain of red flowers fell on the crows who had become lifeless the moment the woman in the pink-purple palace dress spoke of the spiritual pause. The rain of red flowers began to cut the skin of the crowman's body. Immediately after, the black blood that had been gushing out of Crow's body shot out from the holes that had been cut open. The ink-colored blood also contained crushed jelly-like solids. Come to think of it, it should be the heart that was crushed by the blood. However, in the instant that the black blood spurted out, Crow's spirit had already recovered. However, strangely, Crow did not resist immediately, its face ashen. Because the Crow knew he couldn't make it. Crow, who was at the peak of Suzerain/Myth 2, could clearly feel the degree of damage to his body and the loss of his life. But that wasn't what the Crow was concerned about. All Crow could think about was the sacred source life form in the sea that he had yet to retrieve. Although he knew he was about to die, fear still surged uncontrollably in Crow's heart. At that moment, Crow turned from his human form into a strange black bird that was less than the size of Lin Yuan's forearm. This strange bird looked no different from an ordinary crow. However, its fur was darker, as though it could blend into the night at any time. Lin Yuan used true data to check the corpse of this dead peak of Suzerain/Myth 2 crow species Fei. He found out that this crow species Fei was called the Night Calamity Crow. This was the first time he had seen the death of a Suzerain/Myth breed Fei. Everything happened in the blink of an eye. The mother of Bloodbath had assassinated the crow when it was least expecting it, but the crow's death had been a result of the mother of Bloodbath. More importantly, the suzerain plant Fei that was about to break through to Myth 3 had suddenly attacked. Otherwise, Lin Yuan could also see that the sudden attack of a power offense type Fei like the mother of Bloodbath. Even though the Night Calamity Crow had been severely injured during the sneak attack, it was not enough to kill it. However, it was not enough to kill the Suzerain/Myth 2 Night Calamity Crow. A Suzerain/Myth breed Fei at the peak of Myth 2. At this moment, the curtains had already fallen. However, at that moment, the heaven and earth cleansing's brownish-red karmic fire had already burned the Suzerain/Myth plant Fei's body. The woman in the pink-purple palace dress, who had already withdrawn the willpower rune, was now unable to resist this heaven and earth cleansing. The branches turned from green to yellow at a speed visible to the naked eye. The mother of Bloodbath hurriedly turned into a human form and went forward. It picked up the tree core beside the Night Calamity Crow's corpse and threw it to the girl in the pink-purple palace dress. Big Sister Xia quickly fused with the tree core. I'll help you resist this heaven and earth cleansing. The girl in the pink-purple palace dress looked at the mother of Bloodbath with only joy and calmness on her face. I originally thought that I would be able to leave the endless forest to find you after breaking through to Myth 3, but I didn't expect such an unforeseen event to happen. However, even if I can't leave this forest, I still met you in the end. The mother of Bloodbath's crimson eyes glowed with a crystal-clear mist. The mother of Bloodbath seemed to see a weak spider and a young sapling living together for countless years. The sapling provided the spider with a hiding place and sheltered from the summer heat. The spider helped the sapling expel the leaf-eating pests. The young spider and the delicate sapling supported each other just like that. Until one day both of them reached the bronze level, then the silver level and finally the gold level. In the end, both of them became myth breeds. The mother of Bloodbath thought that if it hadn't experienced its first heaven and earth cleansing when it became a myth breed, the Moon Empress had saved it and helped it break through to Myth I. In order to repay her kindness, it would have probably stayed in the endless forest. Perhaps it would have already turned into a wisp of smoke under the heaven and earth cleansing. The woman in the pink-purple palace dress didn't care about this heaven and earth cleansing that was burning her body. More than half of the lush green leaves and branches had withered in the raging karmic fire, and even the branches had been charred and broken, drooping to the ground. But even if the drooping branches looked lifeless, there was no life in them. When the withered leaves and short branches fell to the ground, the other ordinary phase on the ground grew frantically around the withered branches. When her tree core had been dug out, the woman in the palace dress knew that she couldn't survive this heaven and earth cleansing. Tonight's update, at least 20 chapters. Let's do a preview. I hope everyone will support button and ask for book coins. Book subscriptions, tips, recommendation tickets, monthly tickets, book reviews results are very important for future book recommendations. End of this chapter. Chapter 307. Any Fae, even if it was in its prime state, would not be able to survive. None of them dared to say that they would definitely be able to survive the world cleansing. What's more, at this moment, the woman in the robe was still injured from having her tree core dug out. Lin Yuan looked at the plants on the ground that were still growing wildly even on the snow, and his heart suddenly stirred. As the saying goes, fallen flowers are not heartless. They turn into spring mud to protect the flowers. In fact, these suzerain/myth breed Fays were born from nature and seized the essence of heaven and earth. He was comprehending a law rune that held a trace of the laws of heaven and earth. Lin Yuan looked at the mother of Bloodbath's sorrowful expression and hesitated for a moment before taking out the life-form sacrificial fire from the spirit lock spatial zone. The moment the life-form sacrificial fire's majestic life energy appeared, it immediately alerted the mother of Bloodbath. It also gave birth to a new lease of life amidst the despair on the woman's calm face. If it could be said that in the previous moment, the woman in the pink-purple palace dress was a strong person who was forcing herself to be happy and sad before parting. At this moment he finally saw hope in a hopeless situation. This was because the youth in front of him was holding a ray of hope in his hand. A heaven and earth oddity's life-form sacrificial fire was a plant species phase second life. Moreover, the tree core of this pink-purple palace-dressed woman, who was at the peak of suzerain stage / myth 2 and was about to break through to myth 3, did not shatter. The tree core and the life-form sacrificial fire were enough for the woman in the pink-purple palace dress to survive the myth 3 world baptism. Lin Yuan said as he threw the life-form sacrificial fire over. Senior, with this life-form sacrificial fire, you should be able to pass the world baptism of myth 3. The woman in the pinkish-purple dress looked at the glowing life-form sacrificial fire in her hand. His eyes, which seemed to be filled with love and kindness towards all living things, were now filled with gratitude. The mother of Bloodbath's choked voice was also filled with surprise. However, there was also a hint of indescribable warmth in this pleasant surprise. The mother of Bloodbath turned to the woman in the pink-purple palace dress. Big Sister Xia, this is the Moon Empress disciple. I am now his Tao protector. His name is Lin Yuan. The woman looked at the life-form sacrificial fire in her hand and then at Lin Yuan solemnly. She bowed solemnly to express her gratitude. Then, the woman in the pinkish-purple palace dress leaped up and entered her plant body, which had withered and turned yellow from the baptism of the world. The branches of the withered plant danced and directly fused the tree core and the life-form sacrificial fire into the hole in the tree trunk. In an instant, a vitality that seemed to be able to pierce through heaven and earth was awakened from within the plant. The withered branches detached from the tree trunk, and new buds grew out in an instant. The new leaves on the tree were like the flourishing midsummer that would remain verdant no matter how many reincarnations it went through. With this huge upgrade, the suzerain fantasy plantation tree was full of pinkish-purple flowers that looked like hydrangeas. The embroidered ball-shaped flowers continuously fell, and then sprayed into a beautiful and chaotic red, sprinkling into the sky, to welcome the brownish-red flames of the baptism of heaven and earth. This world baptism lasted for 4 hours. Although the mother of Bloodbath had helped at the last moment, it was considered a daunting experience without any mishaps. After the world baptism, the mother of Bloodbath had helped out at the last moment. After the world baptism, the world grace was about to arrive. The woman in the pinkish-purple palace dress gracefully walked under the hole in the sky. A lustrous white halo sprinkled down from the hole and landed on the woman in the pinkish-purple palace dress. At that moment, the plant that was originally full of embroidered ball-shaped flowers instantly grew wildly. It grew from a height of 30 meters to a height of nearly 70 meters. At that moment, under the world grace, the woman in the pinkish-purple palace dress activated the Law Rune. The pinkish-purple petal-shaped Law Rune landed on the huge plant body, and the huge plant rippled with clear and crystalline green waves. The crystalline green waves mixed with the pinkish-purple halo seemed to be cleansing the will of heaven and earth. In the end, the nearly 70-meter-tall plant body kept shrinking and finally turned into a small garland. This small garland was full of embroidered ball-shaped flowers. If one didn't look closely, it looked like a green branch supported by jade, with many pinkish-purple bells hanging on it. The woman in the pinkish-purple palace dress held it in her hand and looked at it for a moment before putting it on her wrist. This was a transformation that a suzerain / myth breed fae would definitely experience after reaching myth 3. This transformation was called body weaponization. Body weaponization literally meant that the fae's body would turn into a weapon. This way, a suzerain / myth breed fae in human form would have strength that wasn't inferior to its beast form. When the suzerain / myth 3 fae turned into a weapon and combined with its human form, it would release a stronger power. This kind of power was known as spirit return. It was precisely because of spirit return that a suzerain / myth breed fae's myth 3 was a huge dividing line. When a suzerain / myth 3 fae reached the state of spirit return, it could easily beat up a suzerain / myth 2 fae. This was because there was a huge difference between a suzerain / myth breed fae that could enter the state of spirit return and a suzerain / myth breed fae that couldn't. They weren't on the same level. Therefore, a suzerain / myth breed fae that could enter the state of spirit return was also called a great overlord. At that moment, the world cleansing was considered to have ended. The woman in the pinkish-purple palace dress was considered to have officially reached Myth 3. The woman in the pinkish-purple palace dress looked at Lin Yuan and then looked up at her pinkish-purple petal-shaped law rune. I, Endless Summer, swear by the Enlightenment Law Rune to become the guardian of this human who gave me a new life. I will protect him all the way and obey his orders. If I violate this oath, midsummer shall wither. With the pinkish-purple petal-shaped law rune as the main body, it seemed to be bearing the witness of heaven and earth. A pinkish-purple halo shot out from the petal-shaped law rune and landed on Lin Yuan's body. It made Lin Yuan feel as though he was looking at this world more clearly than before. Lin Yuan looked at the hole where the world cleansing had just descended and the world grace had descended. He then looked at the wildly growing plants around him, which returned to calmness after growing wildly. The soil under his feet that had lost nutrients became fertile again. All of this seemed to contain endless knowledge and wisdom. Lin Yuan seemed to have a faint feeling of enlightenment again. However, this faint feeling of enlightenment was so faint that it could be ignored. Lin Yuan scratched his head. He didn't expect that because he had taken out the life-form sacrificial fire. He had actually obtained the allegiance of a suzerain/Myth 3 plant Fey. Explosive updates. Start. A total of 20 updates. First update. End of this chapter. Chapter 308. A guardian and a path protector were completely different. A path protector was equivalent to a role between a guardian and a teacher, but a guardian was equivalent to the loyalty of a knight. If a retainer knight was a spirit chi professional's loyalty to a creation master, then a guardian was the loyalty of a human with a willpower rune or a fey with a law rune to a spirit chi professional. There was a slight difference in nature between a path protector and a guardian. However, the way they established their relationship with a spirit chi professional was similar. They were both sworn with a law rune, and they were equally strong and reliable. The Mother of Bloodbath watched as Endless Summer made an oath in this world, but it did not find it strange. This was because of the kindness of helping through the world cleansing and saving lives. It was enough for a fey to repay with its life. Lin Yuan had previously decided to build his own guild club. However, he had only thought about it and had not taken action. Firstly, it was because the floating island whale had not become a fantasy breed and become a huge floating island that could support a faction. Another reason was that Lin Yuan did not have any experts that he could use. If Lin Yuan wanted to build his own faction, the most basic thing was to be able to take out items like the flower brocade pearls and completely jade-textured wood that could cause a frenzy of competition. He also needed to have a strong enough force to deter a faction. Although the Moon Empress was Lin Yuan's master, he could not rely on her to build his own faction. Otherwise, if he used the Moon Empress faction to grow, in the eyes of other factions, Lin Yuan's faction would be equivalent to the Radiant Moon Palace's vassal. As Lin Yuan's path protector, the Mother of Bloodbath might be able to become a top expert that could support the establishment of a faction. However, the Mother of Bloodbath was Lin Yuan's path protector and not a member of his faction. Therefore, Lin Yuan had not built his faction yet. However, he no longer needed to worry about this problem that had previously troubled him. With the suzerain/Myth 3 Endless Summer's loyalty, Lin Yuan's faction was enough to be called a tyrant in terms of force. Endless Summer, dressed in a pink-purple palace dress, walked to Lin Yuan's side and bowed. That loving and gentle voice rang in Lin Yuan's ears. Lin Yuan, I will be your protector in the future. I am willing to help you remove the dust from your clothes. Lin Yuan was a little confused. Endless Summer was now a suzerain/Myth 3 Fey and could be considered a contemporary expert. However, Lin Yuan did not know how to address Endless Summer for its sudden allegiance. The Mother of Bloodbath said to Lin Yuan in a serious tone. For spiritual creatures, undergoing the world's baptism is a struggle against the heavens. You saved her and she pledged her loyalty to you. Don't feel like it's something you can't bear. If you really want to say it, it's her who owes you because there's nothing more important than surviving in this world. After listening to the Mother of Bloodbath's words, Lin Yuan seemed to suddenly understand the rules of handling Feys. Indeed, to a Fey that was about to die, saving a life was enough for a Fey to have more possibilities in the future. Endless Summer had already turned around to pick up the dead Knight Calamity Crow and handed it to Lin Yuan. This suzerain/Myth 2 Knight Calamity Crow's carcass is quite valuable. After speaking, Endless Summer's eyes were fixed on Lin Yuan. Lin Yuan looked at Endless Summer's eyes and suddenly saw a trace of waiting for recognition. Lin Yuan revealed a sunny smile and took the Knight Calamity Crow's carcass from Endless Summer. Endless Summer, I will have to trouble you in the future. Endless Summer also revealed a gentle smile. The emotion of waiting for recognition had disappeared, and there was only a kind of following and anticipation. The smile on the mother of Bloodbath's face didn't stop when Lin Yuan took out the life-form's sacrificial fire. The mother of Bloodbath didn't know why, but it felt that this sunny youth in front of it had a kind of magic. As a fae, the mother of Bloodbath didn't think that it would believe and recognize a human who was many times weaker than it. The mother of Bloodbath had to admit that before Lin Yuan helped it break through to Myth 2. The mother of Bloodbath had subconsciously recognized Lin Yuan. The mother of Bloodbath had watched this sunny youth grow step by step over the past few months. The mother of Bloodbath couldn't help but think of the world cleansing that Lin Yuan had experienced at Myth 2. The youth who stood unmoving in the wind and rain and held up a path for its survival. The mother of Bloodbath felt that Lin Yuan was a little silly. He clearly could have been selfish, but he didn't choose to be selfish, just like when Lin Yuan took out the life-form sacrificial fire. It was because of this that the mother of Bloodbath gradually saw Lin Yuan differently from the Moon Empress. The Moon Empress was completely the mother of Bloodbath's benefactor. To Lin Yuan, the mother of Bloodbath felt that its relationship with Lin Yuan was more like its relationship with Endless Summer. Like a senior, like a friend, like a relative. The mother of Bloodbath said to Lin Yuan, "Give me the bottle containing the drop of essence blood that I gave you previously." Upon hearing that, Lin Yuan handed the bottle containing the Night Calamity Crow's essence blood that he had placed in the amber button-shaped diamond face storage box to the mother of Bloodbath. The mother of Bloodbath took the bottle, opened the cork, poured the black essence blood from its palm into the bottle, and then plugged the cork again. Then, the mother of Bloodbath threw the bottle to Lin Yuan and said, "I used the Blood Law rune to purify the Night Calamity Crow's blood. I just used the Blood Law rune to purify the Night Calamity Crow's blood. There are exactly 20 drops of essence blood in this bottle, including the one from before." After handing the bottle to Lin Yuan, the mother of Bloodbath sighed. "Although this Night Calamity Crow didn't have the chance to use the Law rune just now, I think its Law rune should be inclined towards the Dark Attribute Power attack type. It's an extremely good Law rune for sneak attacks." When the mother of Bloodbath said this, it looked at Endless Summer. The mother of Bloodbath was very clear about Endless Summer's strength. Endless Summer might not be a suzerain/myth breed fae that was good at defense. However, the Night Calamity Crow could take out the tree core in a sneak attack, especially when Endless Summer's grade was slightly higher than the Night Calamity Crow. This Night Calamity Crow had been stuck at suzerain/myth 2 for a long time. However, Endless Summer had touched the threshold of Myth 3 and was ready to face the Myth 3 world cleansing. After saying that, the mother of Bloodbath reached out and pinched the Night Calamity Crow's head in Lin Yuan's hand. Chapter 309. Lin Yuan immediately heard the sound of fine iron shattering. Immediately after, he saw the mother of Bloodbath take out a black crystal about the size of a fingernail from the pinnacle suzerain/myth 2 Night Calamity Crow's head. This black crystal seemed to have a layer of unclear night fog flowing on it, and the inside of the fog seemed to be constantly eroding something. This kind of erosion seemed to be able to turn anything under the night fog into flying ashes. Endless Summer looked at this fingernail-sized black crystal and said, "This is the Night Death Law rune. It's Night Death's Law rune. It contains a kind of death energy. This law crystal is still in perfect condition without any damage." Lin Yuan's eyes immediately widened when he heard the words Law Crystal. He carefully looked at the fingernail-sized black crystal in the mother of Bloodbath's hand. Lin Yuan had heard the Moon Empress mention the Law Crystal before, but he had not asked about it in detail since it was something that only appeared on Mythbreed phase. He did not expect to have a chance to see it now. The mother of Bloodbath looked at Lin Yuan's probing eyes and handed the thumb-sized crystal-like death crystal to him. "Keep it well. This is the truly precious thing." The mother of Bloodbath cleared its throat and explained. "After a Mythbreed fae dies, the Law rune they comprehend will not disappear but turn into a crystal-like Law crystal. However, it is rare for a Law crystal to be so complete because suzerain/myth breed phase can activate their Law runes in battle. When the Law rune's energy is consumed or collides with other Law runes during the battle, cracks will appear. After a fae reaches Myth 2, it will comprehend a method of burning willpower runes. Therefore, most Law crystals are fragmented and very few are complete." Lin Yuan could not help but ask, "What about this Law crystal?" When he asked this question, Lin Yuan had a faint guess in his heart. The mother of Bloodbath took the Night Calamity Crow's corpse from Lin Yuan's hand and started to dismantle it. That's because that stinky crow died before it could activate its Law rune. Big Sister Xia's Enlightenment Law rune can stabilize the mind. In addition to Big Sister Xia's all-out attack and my sneak attack at the beginning and the last wave of harvest, I ended the Night Calamity Crow's life. That's why this law crystal is complete. The law crystals of Myth 3 phase are also different after they die. Look at this willpower crystal in your hand that contains the dark-type death attribute. Don't you see 2 golden marks on it? The number of each golden mark represents the realm of the myth breed Fae. As the mother of Bloodbath explained, its mind seemed to suddenly think of the Moon Empress looking at it with a smile. At that moment, the mother of Bloodbath felt a chill all over its body. If the Moon Empress knew that I dared to teach Lin Yuan knowledge, I'm afraid she will definitely mark me down in her heart. Lin Yuan was listening attentively, but the mother of Bloodbath said quietly, "Don't worry. The next time you have a question and answer session with the Moon Empress, don't ever say that I told you about this. You must use the Moon Empress knowledge as the standard. Here I've dismantled all the spiritual materials of this pinnacle suzerain/myth 2 Night Calamity Crow for you. However, even if all these materials were added together, they still wouldn't be a match for the complete Darkness Death Law crystal with 2 notches." Lin Yuan took the spiritual materials that the mother of Bloodbath handed over. Lin Yuan suddenly felt that the mother of Bloodbath was simply a professional at dismantling birds. This suzerain/myth 2 Night Calamity Crow had been dismantled by the mother of Bloodbath. However, whether it was the materials obtained from the Night Calamity Crow or the Death Law crystal, they were things that Lin Yuan could not use at the moment. Putting aside how rare it was to obtain things from a pinnacle suzerain/myth 2 Fae. For example, the Law crystal with 2 golden marks could only be obtained by instantly killing a suzerain/myth 2 Fae. How many people in the world could have such strength? This pinnacle suzerain/myth 2 Night Calamity Crow was really Lin Yuan's treasure. Whether it was the phoenix perching Chinese parasol tree or the golden metal disc containing it, they were not things that Lin Yuan could easily obtain. In the end, this Night Calamity Crow had even dutifully delivered its complete body as a treasure. Lin Yuan was now simply rich. Endless Summer looked at the environment in the depths of the endless forest and said with some emotion, "Ever since I had consciousness, I have never left this place. Ever since I gained consciousness, I've never left this place. However, in the future I'll be able to go anywhere." Endless Summer said this with some reluctance, but it was more of a longing. For animal species phase and insect species phase, as long as they did not die at normal, they could travel tens of thousands of miles and see the scenery along the way. But for Endless Summer, when it reached Myth 3, it could just leave the land under its feet. Lin Yuan saw that there were no more problems with Endless Summer's body, and its Myth 3 realm had completely stabilized. Lin Yuan immediately said the purpose of his trip. Endless Summer, the mother of Bloodbath, said that you have the resources to upgrade Red Thorn from epic to legend. I wonder if you can upgrade Red Thorn's quality? While speaking, Lin Yuan had already summoned Red Thorn. Red Thorn's smooth vine, which was tied with a red ribbon and had no thorns, was placed on Lin Yuan's wrist the moment Red Thorn was summoned. Lin Yuan could feel Red Thorn's emotional fluctuations. Apart from dependence, there was also an emotion called peace of mind. Lin Yuan did not know why, but he suddenly felt that during this period of time, be it Genius, Chimey, Red Thorn, or Morbius, he had always been focused on busying himself. He had always been busy with his own things and neglected his companions. To him he had family, friends and many fays. But to each of his contracted fays they only had him. This was because he, as their contractor, was their everything. At that moment, Morbius' voice suddenly echoed in Lin Yuan's mind. "Lin Yuan, to each of us fays, having you around is the greatest happiness. You don't have to think too much about us and focus on the path you want to take. We still have a long time with you, a lifetime." Upon hearing Morbius' words, the words "a lifetime" kept flashing in Lin Yuan's mind. Lin Yuan said softly in his spiritual spatial zone, "A lifetime is the longest time in life. A lifetime is the longest time in a person's life. It's great to have you guys around for a lifetime." A person's attitude toward fays was actually very easy to see from their interaction with their contracted fays. Chapter 310. Endless Summer could clearly feel that Red Thorn's intelligence was like a child that had just learned to express joy, anger, sorrow and joy. Lin Yuan must have always treated Red Thorn very well. Otherwise, even if he was Red Thorn's contractor, Red Thorn would never be so dependent on him. Given Red Thorn's intelligence, if Lin Yuan did not treat Red Thorn well, it would have a kind of fear toward Lin Yuan. Endless Summer hated the feeling of fays being afraid and obedient to humans the most. He looked at Red Thorn's vine that was tightly holding onto Lin Yuan's hand and the red ribbon that was tied around it. Endless Summer suddenly felt that even time had warmed up. In the depths of the endless forest, it had been snowing heavily recently. The white snow pressed on the ground, giving off a chill. However, the scene before her eyes made her feel as warm as the midsummer in August. My Enlightenment Law rune condenses power every 5 years to enlighten a plant-type Fae. I used to enlighten myself every 5 years, but I reserved a chance to enlighten myself. I thought that if I couldn't resist the world cleansing when advancing to Myth 3, I could use this enlightenment opportunity to earn a trace of life for myself, but I didn't use it. However, I'm not sure if this Law rune's enlightenment can let your contracted red thorn evolve from epic to legend. After speaking, Endless Summer summoned her pink-purple petal-shaped enlightenment willpower rune. It immediately used enlightenment on Red Thorn. This enlightenment was cast very quickly, and Lin Yuan could feel that Red Thorn immediately fell into a deep sleep after receiving this enlightenment. Lin Yuan knew that Red Thorn's deep sleep was a necessary state for Red Thorn to improve its strength. This was because Red Thorn was originally just a source-type source seed. Red Thorn's current state was the result of Red Thorn's evolution after Lin Yuan had chosen its direction. It could be said that Red Thorn was originally a blank space, but this blank space had been drawn into its current state under Lin Yuan and Red Thorn's joint efforts. Lin Yuan didn't dare to say that Red Thorn's current evolution and form was the best route. However, Red Thorn's current state was the most suitable for Lin Yuan's combat style. Endless Summer sensed Red Thorn's state and said, "One enlightenment takes 7 days. It takes 7 days for each enlightenment. It looks like there's a high chance that it'll advance in grade." Lin Yuan nodded. In fact, just a second before Endless Summer spoke, Endless Summer had already spoken. Lin Yuan already knew that Red Thorn's quality would definitely increase. This was because Red Thorn had just sent him a request, asking him which direction he should evolve towards. Lin Yuan did not expect Endless Summer's enlightenment to be so powerful. Endless Summer's enlightenment was equivalent to letting Red Thorn become a bronze/epic monster. With one step, he crossed this insurmountable hurdle and reached bronze/legend. However, he also knew that Endless Summer's Law rune's enlightenment was so strong because it had just reached Myth 3. Moreover, Endless Summer could only use the Enlightenment Law rune once every 5 years. Since Endless Summer had just undergone the world cleansing, Endless Summer's Enlightenment Law rune still had a trace of world grace. After breaking through the barrier of Red Thorn's quality, this enlightenment brought with it a hint of the grace of heaven and earth. Moreover, Red Thorn had nowhere to vent the huge amount of energy it had accumulated from devouring a large amount of flesh and blood in the Demon Sea. It had originally planned to upgrade its grade. This huge amount of energy was matched with the hint of the grace of heaven and earth in the enlightenment. It was very likely that Red Thorn would break through to silver when it fused with the willpower rune and became a fantasy breed. Lin Yuan had always been very clear about Red Thorn's evolutionary path. However, on the main path that Lin Yuan had planned, the detailed branches that Red Thorn had given him made him hesitate. Because of one of Lin Yuan's own decisions, Red Thorn's form would be very different after becoming a fantasy breed. However, Lin Yuan could slowly think about it and did not need to be very anxious to decide on Red Thorn's evolutionary path. This was because Red Thorn's metamorphosis would be completed when it fused with the Law rune and became a fantasy breed. Therefore, during the 7 days of enlightenment, Lin Yuan could make a careful consideration. He could make a thoughtful balance according to his combat power system. In the Radiance Federation's Supreme Imperial Court, 13 chairs were located next to a huge stone table engraved with many marks. Each of the 13 chairs had a silhouette on it. Each of them was a true expert of this era. Each of them was a hand that held up the Radiance Federation's sky. At that moment, the Imperial Court was very quiet. A benevolent-looking old man was sitting on the main seat of the stone table. However, the old man was leaning against the backrest, and the light in the room was slanted down, so the old man's face could not be seen. However, he could feel the respect that the other 12 people sitting on the chairs beside the stone table had for the old man. The Moon Empress was sitting on the second chair on the left side of the Imperial Court. A burly man with a full beard sat on the upper side of the Moon Empress. The burly man was squinting at the Moon Empress. The Moon Empress was looking at the man holding a green bamboo in the third seat with an inexplicable look in her eyes. The one who had been looking at the Moon Empress was the oldest of the 3 Class 5 Creation Masters, Chef Supreme. The Moon Empress was looking at the Bamboo Monarch. It was obvious that the 3 of them were discussing something. Sitting opposite the Moon Empress was the chief guard of the Spirit Guards, whose face was always covered with a layer of black veil. Sitting opposite the Moon Empress was a smiling man with peach blossom eyes. There was also a cold-looking man in dark armor with an ashen face. If Lin Yuan saw these two people, he would definitely realize that one of them was the man called Iron Prison, who had almost forced his master to make a move. One of them was the smiling man who had rushed over at the last moment and mentioned what happened 10 years ago, causing the Moon Empress to stop. Apart from Chef Supreme, the Moon Empress, the Bamboo Monarch, Chief Guard Yi, Iron Prison, and the smiling man, there were also 6 men of different appearances among them. Among the 12 seats in the 2 rows, there were only 2 women. One was the Moon Empress, and the other was the Chief Guard of the Spirit Guards. But now the atmosphere was a little strange. Everyone was communicating with their eyes. Only the smiling man was tapping the table with his fingers, as if he was waiting for something. A very gentle voice rang out. It was hard to tell the age of this gentle voice, but it was also very peaceful, and there was an indescribable weight in the peacefulness. This voice came from the old man who was leaning against the chair on the main seat. What do you think about this issue? Chapter 311. Iron Prison slammed the table and stood up. This matter must be resolute to the end. After Iron Prison finished speaking, no one responded. The smiling man stopped tapping on the table and pulled Iron Prison, who was sitting beside him, to sit down. This action was done very skillfully, as if it had been done many times. Chief Guard Yi stood up and waved her hand. Nearly 100 source-type items landed on the stone table. Contrasting with the radiant patterns on the stone table, these source-type items appeared exceptionally dazzling. There are a total of 109 source-type items in the Radiance Federation. 33 of them come from controlled class 3-dimensional rifts, 57 from controlled class 2-dimensional rifts, and the remaining 29 from class 1-dimensional rifts. Speaking of this, the black-veiled bureau chief Yi paused and continued. However, these class 1-dimensional rifts are all alien insect dimensional rifts, and they are all located in the remote counties around the big cities. Although the chief guard of the Night Spirit Guard's voice was calm, there was an indescribable seriousness in it. Bureau Chief Ye's words meant that everyone present already knew the whole story. However, they did not expect so many dimensional rifts to be set up. Furthermore, this juncture happened to coincide with the active period of the decennial dimensional rift. When the old man on the main seat heard Bureau Chief Ye's words, he turned to look at the Moon Empress. The calm voice sounded again. Moon Empress, what do you think? The Moon Empress didn't stand up, but her back was perfectly straight. All the rules will change with time, but what will never change is who has the biggest fist, who has the right to speak. You've already been schemed against, what else can you say? I've already ordered the Totem Moon to go to the Darkstone continent where Gloomy Dark is. This matter shouldn't be behind Gloomy Dark, but Gloomy Dark must be involved with this organization. Then, let the Totem Moon hang high in the sky for 3 days as the price. Since someone tampered with the county beside Radiant City, the power of the 3 suns and moonlight should be comparable to these tampered dimensional rifts. As soon as the Moon Empress finished speaking, the chief guard of the Spirit Guard sighed and said, "That's right. Chiyu, you haven't changed at all from 10 years ago." The Moon Empress lowered her head and looked at her hands. After a while she spoke. "It has changed. My heart is warm now." The Imperial Court Conference started from the setting of the sun in the west, and slowly went on until the sky was filled with stars. The person sitting in the middle said in a calm voice, "Today's topic is over. Does anyone have a new topic?" The Moon Empress looked at Bamboo Monarch and Chef Supreme and stood up. The Radiance 100 sequence's previous assessment was only the finals. It was too monotonous and couldn't assess the overall strength. Therefore, I suggest that the Radiance 100 sequence's assessment this year should be changed. The Moon Empress words stunned an ordinary-looking middle-aged man on the 12th seat. This middle-aged man was the one Lin Yuan had encountered when he had applied to participate in the Radiance 100 sequence competition with his exclusive title. The middle-aged man looked at the Moon Empress and couldn't help but twitch his lips. When did the Moon Empress start to care about the Radiance Sacred Hall? However, it was true that the Radiance 100 sequences selection method had not changed for more than a decade. It was indeed time to change it. However, the Moon Empress didn't expect the topic to change. 2 years later, 4 Radiance Envoy positions will be vacant. I suggest that Creation Masters are also qualified to fight for a Radiance Envoy spot. The Moon Empress words caused the atmosphere of the meeting that was about to end to turn serious. At that moment, the Bamboo Monarch and Chef Supreme exchanged a look and looked deeply at the Moon Empress. Bamboo Monarch stood up and said, "Chef Supreme and I agree with the Moon Empress point of view. The Radiance Envoys are a team of 5. The strength of each member is important, but having a creation master in the team will only be beneficial to the Radiance envoys. Chef Supreme felt a little uncomfortable in his heart as he recalled the Moon Empress words. Chef Supreme knew that everything the Moon Empress did was to pave the way for her disciple. However, when he thought about the disciples he had taken in, especially the eldest disciple who had just returned home with injuries all over his body and was acting like a scoundrel. His eldest disciple even wanted him to accept another person as a disciple. This was simply trying to kill his own master. How could there be such a sinful disciple? Even if I don't know, I can't let my old bones snatch the Moon Empress disciple. If that was the case, his kitchen fragrance palace would probably be demolished by the Moon Empress. That night, the royal court meeting did not end. When the sun gave birth to dawn and once again descended upon the world with its radiance, the Moon Empress stepped out of the imperial court and looked at the rising sun. Suddenly, a smile appeared on her cold face. At this moment, the smiling man with peach blossom eyes and Iron Prison were standing next to the old man leaning against the chair on the main seat. Iron Prison said after a moment of silence, "I agree with the Moon Queen." The smiling man with peach blossom eyes was a little surprised. Wasn't Iron Prison the best at going against everyone? When did he change? The smiling man with peach blossom eyes saw that the person on the main seat had not spoken. Knowing that he was waiting for him to express his opinion, the smiling man with peach blossom eyes pondered for a moment and said, "Above the mythical level is the Genesis level. I'm afraid only the younger generation will have the chance to see it." The old man sitting on the main seat suddenly let out a peaceful laugh after hearing this. In the world of creation there was a carrot that was eaten every day. In the depths of the endless forest in the north, the pure white snow had been stopping for the past few days. It had completely decorated the depths of the endless forest into a white world. However, the plant-type phase in the depths of the endless forest were generally of higher grade, and most of them were species that were verdant all year round. Therefore, the depths of the endless forest that was covered with pure white snow was somewhat like a green world that was blooming in the snow. In a giant tree hole, a white-clothed youth was resting with his eyes closed. All of a sudden, the white-clothed youth's eyelashes trembled, and he opened his eyes. While Red Thorn had been evolving for the past few days, Lin Yuan had been considering the few evolutionary directions that Red Thorn had sent to him based on the spiritual requests. Red Thorn had sent a total of 3 evolutionary directions. The first was to strengthen Red Thorn's or Tet's strength after becoming a fantasy breed and maintain the current child ramets and ramets produced by Red Thorn's spore cavity. Red Thorn's application route was immediately rejected by Lin Yuan. Because Lin Yuan had chosen to let Red Thorn evolve toward a group, he had no intention of changing Red Thorn's evolutionary direction in the future. Chapter 5, End of this chapter. Chapter 3:12. If he rashly changed Red Thorn's evolution direction to evolve its Ortet, then the evolution potential in Red Thorn's evolution process would be wasted. Lin Yuan naturally would not do such a thing that consumed his contracted phase evolution potential. The second evolution direction that Red Thorn applied for was to maintain the coevolution mode of the Ortet and child ramets. While strengthening the Ortet's attack ability, it would also strengthen the combat ability of the plants that spawn the Sea of Flowers. This evolution route was also the one that Lin Yuan had been letting Red Thorn choose so far. It was an evolution method that not only maintained a part of Red Thorn's Ortet's combat ability, but also strengthened the Sea of Flowers that spawned it. However, when Lin Yuan saw Red Thorn's third evolution request, he hesitated. This third evolution request was what Lin Yuan had been thinking about for the past few days. Red Thorn's third evolution request could be said to be giving up the Ortet's combat ability. Instead, it would give all the combat ability to the spawn child ramets and child ramets, greatly enhancing the spawn child ramets and child ramets' strength and the speed of the Sea of Flowers spread. If Red Thorn chose the third evolution direction when it became a fantasy breed, it would weaken the Ortet's combat ability. Thus, the Ortet would turn from a unit with combat ability into a pure production unit. This evolution mode could be said to be the same as the first one, which was an extreme evolution. It was just that it had changed from the extreme individual to the extreme group. However, this third evolution route also coincided with the direction that Lin Yuan had been letting Red Thorn evolve. In terms of individual strength, the acid corrosion queen bee parasitized in Red Thorn's body could completely bear the responsibility of individual damage. In fact, Red Thorn's Ortet did not need to have an extremely strong defense. Lin Yuan's source sand could protect Red Thorn's Ortet, and the acid corrosion queen bee could also take on the responsibility of protecting Red Thorn's Ortet. More importantly, based on Red Thorn's performance in these recent battles, the Ortet's single combat ability was almost useless. Whether it was on Star Web or in the battle against dimensional rifts in reality, Red Thorn's Child Ramets and Child Ramets were almost useless. Instead, it was the sea of flowers formed by Red Thorn's Child Ramets and Child Ramets that played a role. The second evolution route that Red Thorn requested might not seem wrong, and it was evolving toward all aspects. However, if it was too conventional, it would be mediocre. Lin Yuan didn't only have Red Thorn, so he didn't need it to take care of everything. Sometimes, a specific contracted phase outstanding performance in a specific aspect would often be better than an all-around development. It seemed like Lin Yuan's contracted Red Thorn and the Source Sand's activation method was rather similar. However, Red Thorn and the Source-type Source Sand had completely different positions in Lin Yuan's heart. The Source-type Source Sand was an elemental type, which meant that it could develop in any direction. Moreover, he focused on nurturing the Source Sand's defense. However, he also used the Source Sand's advantage of being able to control, output, and defend to make up for some gaps on the battlefield. Extremely powerful Phase like Chimey and the Acid Corrosion Queen Bee were sharp swords. Phase like Red Thorn and the Blue Flash Purple Butterfly that could be used for control were entangling vines. Phase like the Jasmine Lily and the Spirit Gather Goldfish that could be used for healing were replenishing springs. In that case, the Source Sand was the core Phase that connected the sharp sword, the coiling vines and the replenishing spring. Afterward, Lin Yuan would evolve Red Thorn toward the third evolutionary path that Red Thorn had requested. It would be the same as turning the entangling vines into a coiling snake. The thorns on the vines would become the venomous fangs on the snake's head. Not only would it increase Red Thorn's control ability, but it would also increase the possibility of killing. This would allow Lin Yuan's group control and output to climb to another level. More importantly, Red Thorn's group path was different from other Phase. Other Phase, like Qin Hongfeng's huge-tailed swamp lizard, which Lin Yuan had encountered previously. The huge-tailed swamp lizard's elemental magical type group attack could certainly produce a wave of output immediately. However, this kind of elemental magical type group attack consumed a lot of spiritual power, and it could stop at will when the spiritual power supply was stopped. However, as long as Red Thorn's Ortet was not killed, and Red Thorn could rely on the Sea of Flowers to kill the target to obtain flesh energy, Red Thorn's Sea of Flowers would always have combat power. Moreover, Red Thorn's true strength did not lie in this fixed mode of duel on the Star Tower's arena. Instead, when facing a large number of dimensional lifeforms in the dimensional rift, it could quickly spread out the Sea of Flowers while absorbing flesh energy. It would then play a decisive role in suppressing the dimensional lifeforms. Therefore, to a certain extent, with Red Thorn around, any group attack that was not strong in terms of individual strength would just be sending food to its death. Finally, Lin Yuan made up his mind to let Red Thorn choose the third evolution method. At this moment, Red Thorn had also awakened from its 7 days of enlightenment. Lin Yuan looked at Red Thorn and found that it had indeed evolved from epic to legend. Red Thorn's Ortet was much bigger than before, and its vines were thicker. Lin Yuan suddenly realized that when he looked at Red Thorn, he really felt that it was a bit like a single-target Fae. However, after Red Thorn became a fantasy breed, it would welcome its biggest metamorphosis since it had been hatched. Endless Summer and the Mother of Bloodbath had been guarding outside and saw that Red Thorn had evolved from epic to legend. Endless Summer originally wanted to congratulate it, but it realized that the Mother of Bloodbath had pulled it back and shook its head at it. Big Sister Summer, let's go somewhere further and guard. In a while, that plant in the tree hole that evolved from a source seed will evolve into a fantasy breed. Upon hearing the Mother of Bloodbath's words, Endless Summer could not help but recall how difficult it had been to rely on itself to comprehend the willpower rune. However, be it the Mother of Bloodbath or Endless Summer, they were very firm about the path they had taken. If they were not firm, they would not have been able to become such experts. Alright, we are about to leave this place. I will also look around. Endless Summer also understood the Mother of Bloodbath's meaning. 4 spirit chi professionals, using the willpower rune to fuse with their contracted phase to evolve into fantasy breeds was a very private matter. There shouldn't be anyone around to disturb them. Even if Lin Yuan did not say it, the Mother of Bloodbath and Endless Summer understood this point. Chapter 6, End of this chapter. Chapter 313. Lin Yuan took a deep breath as he looked at Red Thorn, which had been promoted to legend and was only one step away from fantasy. Lin Yuan had contracted so many phase, and if he had to say who he was the most worried about, it would definitely be Red Thorn. However, worrying was just worrying. With regards to Red Thorn's evolution method that relied on devouring flesh and energy, even a true creation master wouldn't be able to do anything. Moreover, Lin Yuan had always wanted Red Thorn to evolve into a fantasy breed at bronze. It could even be said that as long as Red Thorn did not evolve into a fantasy breed, he would keep Red Thorn stuck at bronze. However, now that Red Thorn had advanced to legendary, it was equivalent to Red Thorn crossing the most difficult hurdle. When Lin Yuan felt Red Thorn's intimacy, he smiled silently and revealed his white teeth. Lin Yuan reached out to hold onto Red Thorn's vine and said, "Don't worry, Red Thorn, I didn't expect you to become a fantasy breed before genius." In Lin Yuan's mind, he had been pushing back the time for Red Thorn to become a fantasy breed. Lin Yuan even felt that Morbius would evolve into a fantasy breed before Red Thorn. Although Red Thorn couldn't understand Lin Yuan's words, it could sense the meaning behind them. Red Thorn waved its vines and seemed to be very happy. Lin Yuan summoned the willpower rune that he had decided to use before. It was the willpower rune that had brought new life from destruction. This willpower rune, which contained a new life amidst the destruction, had a layer of green. There was an indescribable will in this green color, as if the end of everything would be for a better beginning. He held his breath and shot the willpower rune, which had been born from destruction, at Red Thorn. Red Thorn also took the initiative to open its mouth of relinquish and welcomed the willpower rune. It directly swallowed the willpower rune that had been destroyed and had been reborn. At that moment, Lin Yuan gave Red Thorn the command he had chosen, which was to evolve in the third direction. However, Lin Yuan received another request from Red Thorn. Red Thorn's request this time was different from the previous one. If Red Thorn's previous request was to seek the path of evolution, in that case, Red Thorn's current request was for Lin Yuan to increase its ability or function. When Red Thorn had just hatched from the source seed, it had sent an evolution request, and Lin Yuan had asked Red Thorn to weaken the roots. This allowed Red Thorn to not grow in the fixed soil under its feet during the battle. This allowed Red Thorn to rely on its vines to move during the battle, giving Red Thorn mobility. Afterward, according to Red Thorn's request, Lin Yuan had formulated a set of evolution path for Red Thorn by devouring flesh and energy, allowing it to become a predatory plant. This was also the reason why Red Thorn could grow the mouth of relinquish and store so much strong acid in the digestive cavity. This coincidentally laid the foundation for the acid corrosion queen bee to parasitize Red Thorn. And now Red Thorn had such a request. This also meant that when Red Thorn evolved, its body would be in the sea of demons. The massive amount of energy accumulated from devouring a large amount of flesh would directly push Red Thorn's rank to the silver rank. Only when Red Thorn broke through its rank would it be possible to increase this kind of functional evolution. Normal weaken roots. Elite devour flesh. Bronze rank accelerated digestion. After Red Thorn reached silver, Lin Yuan decided on the word energy storage. After Lin Yuan transmitted the command to Red Thorn began to evolve into a fantasy breed. However, Red Thorn's evolution method gave Lin Yuan a huge shock. This was because the vines growing on Red Thorn's body, the thick vines that grew close to its body to protect the mother rabbits, or the sharp vines with barbs that extended out to cause damage to the target. They were all controlled by Red Thorn and sent into the mouth of relinquish. These vines all turned into the most original energy in the mouth of relinquish. However, this was just the beginning. Immediately after, Red Thorn's 12 rose-shaped digestive cavities that bloomed with demonic flowers were all sent into the mouth of relinquish. Even the spore cavity that Red Thorn used to spit out its spores shrank into the mouth of relinquish and was digested by the mouth of relinquish. It could be said that at this moment, Red Thorn's appearance was only a terrifying digestive furnace, the mouth of relinquish, with its sharp teeth turned outwards. At that moment, the mouth of relinquish suddenly lit up with a ball of green luster. This luster carried the same willpower as the willpower rune that gave birth to new life from destruction. At that moment, Red Thorn underwent another drastic change. First, the mouth of relinquish started to expand. In the past, the mouth of relinquish was only 1 meter tall and was like an ellipsoid. However, the mouth of relinquish had developed horizontally and turned into the shape of a pumpkin. The mouth of relinquish suddenly expanded and occupied most of the space in this tree hole. At that moment, the mouth of relinquish was 2 meters tall and nearly 3 meters wide. If Red Thorn's mouth of relinquish was said to be a small cherry mouth, and although it revealed sharp teeth, most of the dense teeth were still inside. Now, Red Thorn's mouth of relinquish had changed from a small cherry mouth to a bloody mouth. The mouth of relinquish's folds opened up, and it split open into a huge mouth that could swallow a large ferocious beast. Moreover, Lin Yuan found that among the 18 huge mouths on Red Thorn's mouth of Relinquish, each of them had a sharp vine-like tongue. The tongue was covered with sharp barbs. However, Lin Yuan could sense that Red Thorn's spiky tongue was not for grabbing flesh and stuffing it into its mouth. It was to help with digestion. Immediately after, energy flickered above the mouth of Relinquish, and a flesh-like flower with a diameter of nearly 3 meters bloomed. This flesh-like flower was Red Thorn's newly grown spore cavity. Just from the size of this spore cavity, it could be seen how much Red Thorn's exclusive skill, spore reproduction, had been enhanced. Now, as long as the flesh-like flower above Red Thorn's mouth of Relinquish scattered its spores, then the spores would instantly cover a large area. Immediately after, 12 pocket-like plant structures grew on the mouth of Relinquish. These 12 huge pocket-like plant structures bloomed above these 12 huge pocket-like plant structures. However, according to Lin Yuan's inspection of Red Thorn's evolution, he found that these huge and beautiful flowers did not have any practical use. They were just to increase the degree of beauty. Previously, Red Thorn's digestive cavity was aggressive. However, Red Thorn had completely erased the aggression of the Ortet's digestive cavity. Instead, it had increased the digestive cavity's ability to store acid. Those 12 huge pocket-like plant structures were filled with concentrated digestive fluid. Chapter 7, End of this chapter. Chapter 3:14. As long as the mouth of Relinquish needed it, it would instantly flow back to assist in digestion. If Red Thorn's mouth of Relinquish looked a little sinister and ugly before, then with these bag-like plant structures and the 12 delicate red flowers, it actually gave Red Thorn a strange sense of beauty. Malevolent and tender. At that moment, Red Thorn had officially become a fantasy breed. Now Red Thorn had reached Bronze X/Fantasy I. But then, the massive amount of flesh energy in the mouth of Relinquish completely erupted at that moment. A violent roar came from the mouth of Relinquish, and the energy wave formed by the mouth of Relinquished digestion actually made Lin Yuan feel a repulsive force. Under the complete operation of fantasy breed Red Thorn's flesh furnace, the majestic flesh energy absorbed from the Sea of Devils was rapidly absorbed by Red Thorn. At that moment, Red Thorn was evolving from Bronze X/Fantasy breed to Silver Fantasy breed. At that moment, Lin Yuan realized that fist-sized round protrusions suddenly appeared on Red Thorn's mouth of Relinquish. As Red Thorn consumed a large amount of flesh energy, these protrusions grew bigger and finally cracked open. Lin Yuan found that those protrusions turned out to be pairs of eyes. At a rough glance, nearly 60 fist-sized demonic black-red eyes opened on the mouth of Relinquish, and each eye was filled with vigorous flesh energy. Lin Yuan sensed that each of Red Thorn's eyes on the mouth of Relinquish contained half of the flesh energy that Red Thorn could currently store. These 60 eyes of Relinquish were equivalent to increasing the flesh energy storage capacity in Red Thorn's body by nearly 30 times. Furthermore, it was the flesh energy that could be used at any time. Although this nearly 30 times storage capacity could not allow Red Thorn to instantly erupt, the energy would turn into damage and strike out. However, it would increase Red Thorn's ability to spread out the Sea of Flowers and expand the size of the Sea of Flowers. These eyes must be the new organization that Red Thorn had evolved with the ability to store energy. At the end of the evolution, a vine suddenly grew from the bottom of Red Thorn. This vine was very smooth. This time Red Thorn's vine had grown to nearly 10 meters long. After Red Thorn grew this vine, it was considered to have officially evolved into a Silver Fantasy breed. Lin Yuan checked Red Thorn's true data. Fey name: Red Thorn, Predator Plant, Thousand Eyes Sacrificial, Spirit Species, Vine Subfamily/Giant Flower, Fey Grade, Silver 1/10, Fey Type, Source/Wood, Fey Quality, Fantasy Eye Skills. Frowny Face. Mouth of Relinquish secretes an exuberant digestive fluid. The digestive fluid is extremely corrosive and can quickly digest the energy in food. Carnivorous vines. Vines filled with digestive juices and sharp teeth growing on the inside of the vines can feed on flesh and blood energy by scraping. Tongue of Relinquish multiplies the speed of digestion and can secrete various acids from the flesh and blood it has consumed. Eye of Relinquish, an eye formed through the consumption of flesh energy. Every eye contains a large amount of flesh energy. When the number of eyes of Relinquish is maintained below 60, the eyes of Relinquish can only store energy. When the number of eyes of Relinquish exceeds 60, the eyes of Relinquish will not be stored in the mouth of Relinquish and can be turned into an energy ray at any time. Exclusive skill. Frowny Face. Spore Proliferation. The The spore cavity spits out a large number of spores. The spores can absorb the energy provided by red thorn or flesh energy to rapidly proliferate and grow child ramets and ramets that are controlled by the mother ramets. Wither glory. Red thorn can quickly absorb the energy in the land and inject it into the sea of flowers. As long as the roots of the child ramets and ramets are left in the land, the withered sea of flowers will reach the most prosperous state. Lin Yuan looked at the silver eye/fantasy eye red thorn and gulped. He was dumbfounded for a long time. Now that red thorn had evolved, it had recovered. Red thorn's intelligence had reached the standard of a 7 or 8-year-old child. All of a sudden, the bright vine that grew out of red thorn spiraled and turned into a rattan chair that stood in front of Lin Yuan. Lin Yuan felt that after red thorn's intelligence had increased, it transmitted an even more attached emotion to him. Lin Yuan sat on the chair weaved by red thorn's vines. The chair formed by red thorn's vines was elastic and very comfortable. If red thorn spawned a sea of flowers to fight, sitting on this chair made of vines would be like sitting idly and watching the sea of flowers slaughter each other. As usual, Lin Yuan took out a red ribbon from the diamond face storage box and tied it on the vine that formed the chair. Red thorn immediately made yayan sounds of happiness. However, red thorn no longer had vines dancing around. However, this wasn't a problem for red thorn and Lin Yuan to interact. Red thorn's 12 red double-petaled flowers that were nearly 1 meter in size would sway and let out a whistle. It was like blowing a trumpet. Lin Yuan rubbed his forehead with his hand. Is red thorn going to develop its musical talent like Chimey? However, Lin Yuan had to admit that red thorn's beatbox was very strong. Lin Yuan sighed. Red thorn was different from other fays. Due to red thorn's attack mode, if he wanted to know red thorn's true strength, he would need to produce ramets to take a look. Lin Yuan then asked red thorn to produce ramets. As a result, red thorn produced 2 ramets, and they each had their own characteristics. One was made of dark green vines that were almost black. The vines had sharp teeth inside and were very powerful. This ramet had the strength and standard of a silver fey, which was equivalent to a class 2-dimensional lifeform. Lin Yuan sensed this ramet and realized that it was simply terrifying. This ramet was completely hollow inside. It had the digestive fluid from the ramet's rose-shaped digestive cavity. The rows of sharp teeth under the vines were like mouths that were feeding on their prey. Lin Yuan now understood that red thorn's evolution had increased the ramet's combat ability and simplified the digestive cavity. Through the hollow vines and the way the vines autonomously fed, the vine's ability to digest and obtain flesh energy was increased, killing 2 birds with 1 stone. This ramet's form was obviously the form of red thorn's ability, carnivorous vines. Red thorn's Ortet no longer had vines, so its ability, carnivorous vines, was reflected on the ramets in the sea of flowers. Previously, red thorn's ability wasn't called carnivorous vines but armored vines. However, it was obvious that the carnivorous vine's lethality was stronger now, and the characteristic of killing and digesting was very suitable for red thorn's combat aesthetics. The other ramet was a little strange. The other ramet was a flesh-shaped flower that was close to half a meter tall. This small flesh-shaped flower was a simplified spore cavity. Chapter 8, End of this chapter. Chapter 3:15. Lin Yuan didn't expect that red thorn's promotion to silver would actually resolve a drawback that couldn't be ignored. That was the problem of spreading the sea of flowers. Now, with the simplified spore cavity ramets, the simplified spore cavity ramets were equivalent to a base station. It could afford the replenishment of the sea of flower spores within a certain range. Although red thorn spores were very light and suitable for transmission, they couldn't be transmitted too far by itself. However, now that red thorn had the simple spore cavity to form the ramets, it could use the simple spore cavity ramets to spread the sea of flowers. As long as red thorn had enough flesh and blood energy, it could spread the sea of flowers without limit. The larger the sea of flowers, the easier it would be for red thorn to obtain enough flesh and blood energy, forming a virtuous cycle. This was simply a nightmare for low-grade dimensional lifeforms. All low-grade lifeforms would become red thorn's rations and contribute to its expansion of the sea of flowers. Lin Yuan felt that red thorn was completely worthy of the title of low-grade species adjudicator. At that moment, one of red thorn's eyes of relinquish suddenly disappeared, and it was transported to a simple spore cavity ramete through the vine channel connected to the ramete. When red thorn saw Lin Yuan paying attention to this scene, it tyrannically withdrew the eye of relinquish. Then, he took back the eye of relinquish very domineeringly and babbled to prove to Lin Yuan that it was him. Lin Yuan didn't expect the eye of relinquish to be so flexible. It could be transported to all parts of the Sea of Flowers through the vine channel connected to the ramette. This would greatly enhance the Sea of Flowers' stubbornness. It would allow Red Thorn to be like a queen that could guide the battle in the Sea of Flowers at any time and carry out a reasonable allocation of resources. This wasn't the most important thing. In a large-scale battle, if there was endless flesh and blood energy for Red Thorn to feed on, then Red Thorn would be able to continuously transport the Eye of Relinquish. As for the Eyes of Relinquish that had appeared out of nowhere and contained half of Red Thorn's flesh and blood energy, it was impossible for Red Thorn to escape. It was like an assassin hiding in the Sea of Flowers, waiting to reap lives at any time. As for the Tongue of Relinquish, it proved that Red Thorn's digestive ability was a complete innovation. The digestive fluids of dimensional lifeforms that Red Thorn devoured contained all kinds of acidity. The existence of the Tongue of Relinquish allowed him to concoct the most suitable acid for the digestion of each dimensional creature. This would greatly increase Red Thorn's digestion efficiency. The effect of the Tongue of Relinquish wasn't just on Red Thorn's main body, but the entire Sea of Flowers. After checking the abilities, Lin Yuan wanted to check the exclusive skill that Red Thorn had obtained after becoming a fantasy breed, Withered Glory. Lin Yuan looked at the introduction of Withered Glory under True Data and understood its ability. This was equivalent to giving the entire sea of red thorny flowers a second chance at life. This allowed Red Thorn to extract the energy from the earth, allowing the Sea of Flowers to instantly reach a state of complete victory. However, when he thought of the state of the land after its energy was extracted, his brows twitched. Red Thorn immediately relied on these two ramettes to execute its exclusive skill, Withered Glory. Lin Yuan was right. After a large amount of land energy was extracted, the land turned into a desertified state. This made Lin Yuan clap his hands and shout, "Good?" This was equivalent to Red Thorn relying on its exclusive skill, Withered Glory, to help the source sand create a large amount of yellow sand. In other words, Red Thorn and the source sand had formed a link. This wasn't as simple as 1 + 1 = 2. How terrifying would the sea of sand from the Sea of Flowers be? In order for the source-type source sand to display its strength, it had to be able to create sand. The more sand, the stronger the source sand. However, the problem of the source sand creating sand had been solved by Red Thorn in this way. Furthermore, the area of the Sea of Flowers determined the amount of sand created. At that moment, Lin Yuan stood up and felt refreshed. However, the one that truly benefited from Red Thorn's promotion to a silver/fantasy breed was the Acid Corrosion Queen Bee. The Acid Corrosion Queen Bee didn't do anything but be a bootlicker. Not only did the house expand by several times, but it was also luxuriously renovated for free. In the future, the Acid Corrosion Queen Bee could eat various flavors of acid. With good food and a good place to stay, the Acid Corrosion Queen Bee was simply a winner in life. This meant that a bootlicker would have everything in the end. Lin Yuan stored Red Thorn and the Acid Corrosion Queen Bee back into the leaf-shaped diamond face storage box. Red Thorn could maintain a state of 60 Eyes of Relinquish based on the Eyes of Relinquish's characteristics. Lin Yuan could not help but want to complain that Red Thorn was simply a cheat. After exiting the tree hole, Lin Yuan looked at the feather-like snow that had dyed the green world with a layer of white. Feeling the goose feather snowflakes falling on his face, that itchy feeling, Lin Yuan suddenly sneezed. At that moment, the mother of Bloodbath and Endless Summer walked over. "Congratulations, a bronze fantasy breed Fae is considered a great opportunity," Lin Yuan said hurriedly. "It's all thanks to you using the Law Rune to enlighten Red Thorn. Otherwise, I don't know how long it would take for Red Thorn to advance from bronze to fantasy." Lin Yuan's words stunned Endless Summer. On the one hand, Endless Summer did not expect that after becoming Lin Yuan's guardian, she would still address herself as senior. To a certain extent, a guardian was equivalent to a high-class servant. Another reason was that Endless Summer didn't expect Lin Yuan to really be stuck at bronze and intended to let Red Thorn evolve into a fantasy breed. This showed how broad the horizons of this young man were. Wealth is so abundant. "Young master, just call me Endless Summer. Otherwise, if young master keeps calling me senior as your protector, I can't not call you young master." Endless Summer looked at Lin Yuan carefully with eyes filled with gratitude. Endless Summer would have definitely died in that disaster, but because of the youth in front of her, she managed to survive. After sorting it out, Lin Yuan said, "That's right. Endless Summer, the mother of Bloodbath, and I plan to return to the royal capital. Shall we go together?" Endless Summer nodded gently. "Of course." After speaking, Endless Summer looked at Lin Yuan solemnly. "Lin Yuan, just let me know if you have any instructions in the future." For Fays they would always help their kin and not reason. Therefore, to Endless Summer, all people and things that harmed Lin Yuan were its enemies. Lin Yuan looked at Endless Summer's solemn expression and said, "Okay, then I'll have to trouble you in the future, Endless Summer." After saying that, Lin Yuan took out his cell phone and prepared to call for a flying Fae to pick him up. At this moment, Endless Summer shouted. It was a Diamond 7/Epic Storm long-winged falcon, and the sound of violent winds could be heard. Ninth Watch, end of chapter. Chapter 316. The Diamond 7/Epic Storm long-winged falcon lay obediently on the ground. Endless Summer said with a smile, "There's no need to go through so much trouble. There's no need to go through so much trouble. This falcon flies very fast." When Lin Yuan saw it, he nodded in agreement. Weren't falcons the fastest flying birds? Lin Yuan, Endless Summer, and the mother of Bloodbath rode on the storm long-winged falcon's back and headed for the royal capital. After flying for just over a day, it was as though the world had changed. They had left the northern direction, and the snow could no longer be seen. Lin Yuan looked at the vast mountains and rivers below the storm long-winged falcon with a calm expression. At that moment, Lin Yuan felt that his training in the controlled Class 3 Abyss-dimensional rift and the harvest in the depths of the endless forest had greatly improved him. Now Lin Yuan was going to return to the royal capital and was preparing to apply for his guild club during the tournament. He would now return to the royal capital and prepare to take advantage of the start of the tournament in the next few months to apply for his guild club. Even if the floating island whale had yet to hatch, Lin Yuan would return to the royal capital and prepare to apply for his guild club during these few months. Even if the floating island whale had not hatched yet, Lin Yuan could first outline the embryonic form of his personal strength. After everything was done, the Radiance 100 sequence selection should begin. The Diamond 7/Epic Storm long-winged falcon flew all the way and took less than 2 days to reach the royal capital. The Diamond 7/Epic Storm long-winged falcon was much faster than the Diamond Divine Travel Black Swallow. However, the Storm long-winged falcon was very violent and was a ferocious bird that was adept at attacking. Had it not been for the two suzerain/myth Fays, Endless Summer and the Mother of Bloodbath, holding it back, this storm long-winged falcon would not have been so obedient and sent the three of them back to the royal capital. Some of the Radiance Federation's organizations that rented flying Fays would have thought of capturing the storm long-winged falcon to nurture. The storm long-winged falcon might be relatively docile to the creation master who nurtured it to evolve and increase its grade. However, it was obviously unrealistic to send the storm long-winged falcon to fly as a passenger. Unless the creation master was willing to be the driver on the storm long-winged falcon's back. This was the only way to ensure that the storm long-winged falcon wouldn't casually attack others. However, it was obviously impossible for a creation master to be the pilot. The creation master who could nurture the storm long-winged falcon would at least be a Class 3 creation master. No organization that rented flying Fays would be able to afford the price of a creation master of such a rank as a pilot. On the storm long-winged falcon's back, he had ordered a Diamond Fae storage box from Starweb's Ostrich Logistics for Endless Summer. After all, without spatial storage equipment like the Diamond Fae storage box to store personal items, everything would be inconvenient. In the past, Endless Summer was still in the form of a plant and didn't need to store any items. However, now that Endless Summer had taken human form, there had to be a place to store all the resources and loot that Endless Summer had obtained. At that time, Lin Yuan had looked at Endless Summer's body weaponization bracelet. After these pink and purple hydrangeas become smaller, they look like bells on the bracelet. As a result, when customizing the Diamond Fae storage box, Endless Summer had expressed that she wanted to customize the Diamond Fae storage box into the shape of a pink and purple bell. He then mysteriously expressed that he would hang the pinkish-purple bell-shaped Diamond Fae storage box on the bracelet as a pendant. It was originally a very ordinary statement, but it made Lin Yuan's eyes narrow. Endless Summer looked very gentle and was dressed in a pink and purple silk dress like a lady. But her thoughts seemed a little deep. No matter what the Diamond Fae storage box looked like, anyone who understood Diamond Fae storage boxes would still be able to recognize it at a glance. Endless Summer had customized this Diamond Fae storage box into the shape of a pink and purple bell and hung it on her body weaponization bracelet. It was equivalent to using the pink and purple bell-shaped Diamond Fae storage box as a smokescreen. It would make people feel that this body weaponization bracelet was an accessory to match the pink and purple bell-shaped Diamond Fae storage box. It would weaken the presence of the body weaponization bracelet. Therefore, if there was really a conflict, there was a high chance that people would not look at the body weaponization bracelet on Endless Summer's wrist. Endless Summer's attack method was a spiritual attack. Therefore, as long as Endless Summer activated the body weaponization bracelet, it would be able to instantly release an extremely powerful spiritual attack. This pinkish-purple bell-shaped diamond face storage box was equivalent to giving Endless Summer's body weaponization bracelet a chance to launch a sneak attack every time it attacked. In Lin Yuan's opinion, this was simply black-bellied. However, it was also in line with the way of survival for Fays. After arriving at the royal capital, Lin Yuan did not return to his mansion immediately. Instead, he headed straight for the Leaning Moon Mountain and the Radiant Moon Palace. At that moment, the mother of Bloodbath brought Endless Summer to buy a cell phone. Along the way, the mother of Bloodbath and Endless Summer also went to apply for a new Star Web card. At the same time, they also bought some daily necessities. However, the mother of Bloodbath was a little disappointed. While the mother of Bloodbath had been selling all kinds of delicacies to Endless Summer was not very interested. When Endless Summer got the cell phone and saw those exquisite accessories and clothes, her eyes lit up. Lin Yuan felt that after this Fei reached suzerain/myth, one of the two beside him had the foodie attribute, while the other had awakened the attribute of buying good-looking accessories. This caused Lin Yuan's perception of myth breed Feis to change. No matter what grade a Fei reached in front of an unguarded person, it was just like an ordinary person. It was a very lively life with 7 emotions and 6 desires. Lin Yuan returned to the royal capital and was preparing to go to the Leaning Moon Mountain's Radiant Moon Palace as his first stop. At that moment, the Moon Empress was standing in the Radiant Moon Palace's inner palace's breeding room, in front of a rather strange long porcelain table. This long porcelain table did not look very smooth and had a slight curve. The surface of the long porcelain table looked very smooth, and it should be very difficult for such a curve to be placed on this long porcelain table. It would not fall off the surface of this long porcelain table. However, there were still many things on this table. When the things on the table were placed on this long porcelain table, they seemed to be attracted by this long porcelain table. The long white porcelain table was constantly emitting a majestic water elemental energy. This majestic water element energy was even denser than the water element pearls that Lin Yuan had induced to spit out in the Spirit Lock spatial zone. Chapter 10, End of this chapter. Chapter 317. But the aquamarine elemental shellfish was a living creature. But this white curved table was clearly a dead object. At that moment, Kai Cha, who was standing beside the Moon Empress, poured a cup of tea that was brewed with the leaves of the dark flower dreamy fragrant tea. Kai Cha placed the tea brewed with the leaves of the Dutchman's dream fragrant tea on the curved white porcelain table and said softly, "Moon Empress, your pearl hairpin jade 9-petal plum blossom is blooming better and better." Upon hearing that, the Moon Empress stopped trimming the jade hairpin 9-petal plum's branches. The Moon Empress looked at the jade hairpin 9-petal plum blossom that she had just trimmed. The jade hairpin plum blossom produced by the jade hairpin 9-petal plum would only bloom once every 3 years if it wasn't for the water elemental energy provided by the whale bone. When Kai Cha heard the Moon Empress words, she couldn't help but scratch her head and had an awkward expression. Kai Cha had always thought that the Moon Empress used the whale bone to make the long table so that she wouldn't have to water the jade hairpin 9-petal plum blossom. He didn't expect that the Moon Empress was actually trying to speed up the jade hairpin 9-petal plum blossom's maturation. The material used for this long porcelain table was the whale bone of a Myth 3 cetacean Fei. The Myth 3 whale Fei's whale bone was far more precious than this jade hairpin 9-petal plum. Although the jade hairpin 9-petal plum was a heaven and earth spirit treasure, its effects were rather weak compared to other heaven and earth spirits. This was because the jade hairpin plum blossom's petals could only protect one's hair. However, this kind of hair protecting ability was rather unorthodox among heaven and earth spirit treasures. However, it was very useful for some specific Feis. For example, if some furry animal species Feis used the jade hairpin 9-petaled plum's petals, the jade hairpin 9-petaled plum's petals wouldn't be able to withstand it. It could greatly increase the brightness and luster of the fur. For example, the Moon Empress always used the jade hairpin 9-petal plum's petals to concoct spirit fluids for her contracted Fei, the Calamity Sun-swallowing fox. Of course, the jade hairpin 9-petal plum blossom was especially sought after because it could cure baldness, reduce receding hairline. Therefore, the price was directly raised to a sky-high price. However, if the Moon Empress wasn't in the mood to prune the plum branches, she wouldn't be able to do so. He probably didn't even have the qualifications to be brought to the rear hall. However, when Kai Cha thought about it, she realized that the Radiant Moon Palace had precious spiritual items that couldn't be seen in the outside world. After all, the Moon Empress had casually nurtured them and placed them in a corner to collect dust. However, Kai Cha didn't know that when the Moon Empress was trimming the branches, she wasn't trimming the flowers but the heart. The Moon Empress was still trimming the jade hairpin 9-petal plum blossom. Unknowingly, the jade hairpin eternal plum blossom had been trimmed down by the Moon Empress. From the Moon Empress' point of view, life was like a branch. No matter how he cut it, he would always feel that something was not perfect after the first cut and the next cut. However, the Moon Empress pruning method was different. The Moon Empress would only keep what she wanted and cut off what she felt was unnecessary. As he continued to cut, he managed to create the flavor of the wind rises and the winter becomes cold, the winter plum blossoms bloom in the evening. The jade hairpin 9-petal plum blossom produced numerous and messy plum blossoms. It became a little tacky because there were too many of them. The jade-like 9-petal hairpin flower bloomed on the plum branches as though it was covered with a layer of snow. However, under the Moon Empress pruning, the jade hairpin 9-petal plum blossom now had 9 plum blossoms and 9 petals. In addition, the plum branches were bold and had a hint of elegance, making it look very perfect. The Moon Empress looked at the jade hairpin 9-petal plum blossom that she was more and more satisfied with. There is a special charm in the fragrance and it doesn't know the cold. It is going to be a new year soon. Before Kai Cha could understand the meaning of the Moon Empress words, Mystic Moon's clear voice came from the rear hall's door. Moon Empress, young lord is back. The Moon Empress, who was about to continue trimming the jade hairpin 9-petal plum blossom, immediately put down her hand. There was an elegant smile on his face. Mystic Moon, roast one of the 2 spirit savory pigs that you brought back from Chef Supreme. Mystic Moon immediately accepted the order and went to make the arrangements. Lin Yuan was already in front of the Radiant Moon Palace's door. When he saw the 2 silver stamen gold luster caches in front of the Radiant Moon Palace, he realized that the current scene was very different from when he had left 1.5 months ago. The silver stamen gold luster cache that had become lush but didn't have a willpower rune and maintained its grade at Diamond X/Legend was still lush and full of silver stamen gold luster cache flowers. However, the silver stamen gold luster cache that had comprehended a willpower rune but had dropped a tree of flowers and green leaves and had fallen into a deep sleep. At this time, the tree was already full of tender leaves. Although its height was similar to that of the Diamond X/Legend silver stamen gold luster cache, it had comprehended a willpower rune and reached suzerain. The newly grown tender leaves were filled with flower buds. The flower buds hid gold and silver, and it looked very different from the silver stamen gold luster cache's silver stamen gold luster cache. The suzerain silver stamen gold luster cache had comprehended a willpower rune, and its newly grown tender leaves were filled with flower buds. If the suzerain silver stamen gold luster cache's flowers were like stars, the suzerain silver stamen gold luster cache's silver stamen gold luster cache's flower bud was like a small sun. It shone with a bright gold-silver luster. When this suzerain silver stamen gold luster cache reached Fantasy V, it would welcome its first world cleansing and become a myth breed. Lin Yuan entered the Radiant Moon Palace's inner palace with ease. He immediately saw his master, the Moon Empress, sitting there waiting for him. Upon seeing Lin Yuan in the inner palace, Kai Cha immediately poured a cup of spirit tea from the jade porcelain teapot on the table and handed it to Lin Yuan. Young lord, it's dry and windy outside. Drink some spirit tea to moisten your throat. Lin Yuan took the spirit tea and took a sip. Auntie Kai Cha's tea is still the same as before. It's so mellow and fragrant. The Moon Empress picked up a red and green spirit fruit from the table and peeled the skin. In just 2 or 3 strokes, the skin of the spirit fruit was completely peeled off. The Moon Empress handed it to Lin Yuan and asked, "What about the Radiance 100 sequence? Didn't you say that you'll only be back before the Radiance 100 sequence test? Why is it so early? Did something happen?" After taking the spirit fruit from the Moon Empress, Lin Yuan took a bite, and the fruit fragrance burst in his mouth. The rich fruit fragrance was accompanied by abundant juice, and it was very sweet. The Radiant Moon Palace's spirit fruit was not a particularly precious variety. Instead, it was a kind of apple that could be sold in the market. However, the Radiant Moon Palace's apple was grown from a diamond apple tree. Although it was the same thing, it tasted very different. Kai Cha watched as the Moon Empress peeled off the diamond apple skin and peeled it so perfectly. She could not help but recall the first time the Moon Empress peeled an apple for the young lord, and she seemed to be a little flustered. Chapter 11, End of this chapter. Chapter 318. In the past few months, the Moon Empress had done many things that she wouldn't normally do. In this world, the only person who could make the Moon Empress peel an apple personally was probably the young lord. When Lin Yuan heard the Moon Empress question, he took a bite of the peeled apple and placed it on the table. The training has ended early. I came back earlier to celebrate the new year with Master. The Moon Empress had been worried that Lin Yuan had encountered some problems. Now that he heard it, the smile on his face immediately became even wider. He pointed to the lotus pond not far away and said, "These lotus phase in the lotus pond have all been promoted to suzerain. The lotus root powder made from the ground lotus roots of these suzerain lotus phase is the most delicious. In addition to the osmanthus flowers from the suzerain silver stamen gold luster cassia outside the radiant moon palace, I can ask Mystic Moon to cook the silver stamen gold luster cassia's osmanthus flowers and the lotus roots of these lotus phase to make lotus root powder and osmanthus candy." When Kai Cha heard the Moon Empress words, she couldn't help but shiver. Isn't it too exaggerated for the Moon Empress to dote on the young lord? The essence of the suzerain lotus flower fei was in the lotus seeds and lotus roots. Although lotus seeds were rarer than lotus roots and could only be produced once every 3 years, lotus roots could be produced every year. However, how rare were the osmanthus flowers from the suzerain lotus phase lotus roots and the suzerain silver stamen gold luster cassia. At that moment, those suzerain lotus phase in the lotus pond in the rear palace had already developed considerable intelligence. After hearing the words of the Moon Empress, they all trembled. These lotus phase, which had risked their lives to break through to the suzerain grade in order to stay in the radiant moon palace's inner palace, could not help but have doubts. Back then he had spent so much effort to stand out from his own kind and evolve to the Lord tier. He had thought that he had become a winner in life, but now it seemed that his brothers who had been moved to the garden outside the palace were better off. In the future, every time His Highness came, the lotus root that he had painstakingly grown would be shortened. After dinner, Lin Yuan and the Moon Empress had a question-and-answer session. The Moon Empress couldn't help but be rather surprised from the question-and-answer session. It seemed like her disciple had grown a lot in the past 2 months. This was because only when a person stood at a certain height could they ask questions that needed to be considered at that height. The level of Lin Yuan's questions was obviously much higher than before. The Moon Empress' answers were as detailed as possible, and every answer allowed Lin Yuan to understand thoroughly and gain enlightenment. Before leaving the Radiant Moon Palace, Lin Yuan spoke to the Moon Empress seriously. "Master, I've decided to establish my own private force starting this month." The Moon Empress replied with a smile. "Building a private force. If you can make your own force a cloud in the sky, don't make it a mountain that falls to the ground." Ever since Lin Yuan had left the Radiant Moon Palace, he had been thinking about the Moon Empress' words. At this time Shen Yu walked to the back hall and said, "Moon Empress, young lord is planning to establish his own faction. Do you want me to help?" The Moon Empress shook her head. The Moon Empress understood Lin Yuan's nature and principles, so she also understood how independent he was. If it was any other matter, the Moon Empress might be able to help him in secret due to her selfishness as a teacher. However, when it came to matters like private forces, it wasn't something that could be easily helped. As long as the faction controlled by the Moon Empress intervened and helped Lin Yuan, the Moon Empress would not be able to defeat Lin Yuan. That was equivalent to sending a message to the outside world that Lin Yuan's faction was under the protection of the Moon Empress. If that was really the case, the faction that Lin Yuan had painstakingly built would become a vassal of the Radiant Moon Palace in the eyes of the other factions. As a teacher, the Moon Empress would pave the way for her students. However, he would not become a stumbling block in his students' path because of his pampering. The Moon Empress looked at Mystic Moon and said, "My disciple has grown up and wants to explore the world by himself. As his master, I can only guarantee that my disciple will not be bullied by others. As for the rest, let him fly by himself." Mystic Moon was listening to the Moon Empress, but as he listened, he realized that the Moon Empress was looking at him with a strange gaze. There was a proud look in his eyes. The Moon Empress said, "Why am I telling you this? You don't have a disciple, so how can you understand the feelings of a master who has accepted an outstanding disciple?" Shen Yu put on a puzzled expression. He could not help but complain in his heart. "I've long known about His Highness' excellence." Lin Yuan had walked out of the Radiant Moon Palace and descended the Leaning Moon Mountain. Due to the previous question-and-answer exercise, it was already dusk when he came out. 10 days ago, there was a snowfall in the outskirts of the capital. However, when Lin Yuan returned from the depths of the endless forest in the north, he felt a chill run down his spine. The royal capital had already warmed up. Even in the evening, the temperature wouldn't drop below 15 degrees. Although the temperature in the royal capital was not low, the wind was not small. The night breeze blew the hair in front of Lin Yuan's forehead, revealing his smooth forehead. At this time, the sky was already filled with the sunset glow. The glow fell on the youth's forehead, elongating his silhouette. The training in the controlled Class 3 Abyss-dimensional rift had given him a yardstick to measure a person's heart. This trip to the endless forest depths had let him know that this world was very big, and he was still very small. However, the vastness of the world was also urging and attracting Lin Yuan. It made Lin Yuan firmly believe that although he was currently insignificant, he could use his own footsteps to cross the river, step over the mountains, step onto the clouds and touch the light at the dome. The autumn wind kept blowing on Lin Yuan's body, but Lin Yuan's footsteps became more and more firm. What was the phrase "green hills with clear water"? It was the phrase "calm and unperturbed." This world was really beautiful. In this life, Lin Yuan had a younger sister, a teacher and friends. Therefore, even if Lin Yuan was not a greedy person, he could not help but have the thought of being intoxicated and not returning. Everything was so calm in the late autumn dusk. However, as he stepped on the thick soil, the sunset glow turned into a cocoon, and his body was covered in the sky. Lin Yuan had completely integrated into this world. There was no longer a trace of the feeling of a transmigrator. Lin Yuan returned to his mansion in the royal capital and could not help but look forward to seeing Wen Yu and Lu Jie. Based on this time, in a few days, Lu Jie would go through the internal channels to conduct the Radiance 100 sequence ranking. Therefore, Lu Jie should have returned to the mansion at this time. After 3 years of silence, Lu Jie was also going to take back the glory that he had protected with his life. However, when Lin Yuan entered his mansion, he was stunned by the scene in front of him. After over a month, the mansion had undergone tremendous changes compared to before Lin Yuan had left. Chapter 12, End of this chapter. Chapter 319. If the previous layout of the mansion was just a simple decoration embryo, then the entire mansion had been refined into a work of art. All of this was obviously done by Hu Quan. In Hu Quan, Lin Yuan could see a kind of spirit craftsman's pursuit of art. He was paranoid and loved it. It was clearly a very tiring thing, but Hu Quan was full of enthusiasm when doing it. The elegance of this mansion was vividly displayed under Hu Quan's design. Due to the 3 Riverland Carp's exclusive skill, place of life, the bamboo phase in the 3,000-meter-tall bamboo forest absorbed the 250,000-kilogram high-grade energy or debris in the land and kept growing. When the wind blew in the mansion, it would bring a hint of bamboo fragrance. It had a bit of the elegance of the bamboo stream in the green forest. The more Lin Yuan looked at the changes in the mansion, the more he could not help but have a trace of doubt. Could this Class 4 spirit craftsman, Hu Quan, have been sculpting and designing in the mansion without rest day and night? After entering the main mansion's door, Lin Yuan found that the completely jade-textured wood in the mansion was used extremely well. All kinds of completely jade-textured wood were carved into hollows and embedded in the inside of the ceiling walls. The entire ceiling walls exuded that kind of tranquil jade-textured luster. All kinds of completely jade-textured wood carved ornaments and utensils were placed there. Every detail in the mansion was filled with a natural and warm smell. However, Lin Yuan touched his nose. Although the smell of art came at him, it seemed that the smell of art was far less amazing than the smell of luxury. Lu Jie had pasted a patch made of completely jade-textured wood on the largest wall in the main mansion. On the patch, there were many fine jade-textured wood particles embedded in it. Lin Yuan could already see the rough appearance of the wall scene inlaid with many fine jade-textured wood particles. It was Lin Yuan himself on this wall. Apart from Lin Yuan, there was also Chimey, Genius, Red Thorn, Source Sand, and the Blue Flash Purple Butterfly. There was also Wen Yu, her Moonlight Egret, and the Earth Surge Golden Lotus. There was also Wen Yu, her Moonlight Egret, and the Earth Surge Golden Lotus. There was also Lu Jie and his contracted Source-type Insect Queen. At that moment, Wen Yu was helping Hu Quan in the house. Hu Quan was also carving something. After seeing this wall, Lin Yuan's heart uncontrollably warmed up. Ever since the royal capital's mansion had been constructed, Lin Yuan had never treated it as something that belonged to him. In his opinion, this was his Lu Jie's, Wen Yu's, and the Mother of Bloodbath's common home. But now he had to add Endless Summer into the family. Although this family had many members, Lin Yuan was the core of this family. Lu Jie was Lin Yuan's retainer knight, Wen Yu was his creation master assistant, the mother of Bloodbath was his path protector, and Endless Summer was his protector. But now, the Class 4 spirit craftsman Hu Quan was working hard to make Lin Yuan feel like he wanted to give employees benefits. Hu Quan's relationship with Lu Jie, Wen Yu, the mother of Bloodbath, and Endless Summer was different. Lin Yuan and Hu Quan only had a special employer-employee relationship. Although Hu Quan had used many of Lin Yuan's completely jade-textured wood, he had worked so hard. However, the things that Lu Jie carved out of the completely jade-textured wood also belonged to Lin Yuan. At the end of the day, when Hu Quan signed the contract in order to be able to use a large amount of completely jade-textured wood, he signed himself as a tool. At that moment she suddenly looked up and saw Lin Yuan. At first, Wen Yu thought that her eyes were playing tricks on her. After blinking her eyes, she immediately revealed a pleasantly surprised expression. He ran over happily and said, "Young master, I thought you would only return after the S tournament ends in a month." After saying that, she saw that Lin Yuan was looking at the wall made of completely jade-textured wood fragments. "Young master, Uncle Hu Quan saw that there was no place to use the completely jade-textured wood fragments, so he wanted to make a wall scenery." Lin Yuan looked at the wall scenery that was only half painted. His image was right in the middle of the wall. Beside him were Wen Yu and Lu Jie, and there were quite a few empty seats. At that moment, Lin Yuan's desire to establish his own faction was even stronger. In this life, Lin Yuan was just an 18-year-old youth. Lin Yuan believed that in the process of his growth, the gaps on the wall scenery would be filled by all kinds of people and phase. Whether compared to the red sandalwood longevity fish tank made of completely jade-textured red sandalwood or those carved completely jade-textured ornaments, this wall scenery looked a little inconspicuous. However, in Lin Yuan's opinion, this was the warmest place in the mansion. At that moment, Lin Yuan found that Hu Quan had also put down his work and walked in front of him very solemnly. Lin Yuan saw Hu Quan bow toward him and say in a solemn and grateful tone, "Thank you, Lin Yuan." "Thank you, Lin Yuan." Lin Yuan was a little confused. What did Hu Quan have to thank him for? If he had to say thanks, Hu Quan would not take a single cent of his salary. Lin Yuan felt that he should be the one saying thanks. At that moment, Wen Yu explained at the side. "Young master, Uncle Hu Quan comprehended a willpower rune when he was making this wall scenery a week ago." Lin Yuan did not expect that Hu Quan would have such an opportunity. He could comprehend a willpower rune when he was making this wall scenery. However, Hu Quan did not have to thank him so much for comprehending a willpower rune, right? At that moment, Lin Yuan heard Hu Quan speak. "If it weren't for the fact that I felt something when I saw the red sandalwood longevity fish tank that you set up in your manor, and the fact that there were so many completely jade-textured wood that I couldn't figure out when I was carving, I would never have comprehended this willpower rune." As he spoke, Hu Quan, a middle-aged man who looked a little unserious, actually choked a little. Lin Yuan hurriedly said, "Congratulations, Uncle Hu. Congratulations, Uncle Hu. With this willpower rune, Uncle Hu can have another fantasy breed Fey." Until then, Lin Yuan still did not understand why Hu Quan was so excited. At that moment, Lin Yuan saw Hu Quan's face suddenly reveal the kind of high spirits that only youths often had. "I only comprehended one willpower rune in the previous half of my life. My spirit craftsman skills have long reached the standard of Class 5. However, the basic requirement to become a Class 5 spirit craftsman is to have 2 fantasy breed Fays. I've finally reached it now." At that moment, Lin Yuan finally knew why Hu Quan had been so excited before. As a spirit craftsman, Hu Quan had long regarded spirit craftsmen as more important than spirit chi professionals in this aspect. Chapter 13, end of this chapter. That you're tuning in to the Han Li's Wuxia Adventures YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.